Look, we're all exposed by that list. And saving the world is cool and all that, but my main objective is staying alive. I've been head of Berlin Station for 10 years. You've got to know that I'm the only man in this town that can help me get that list.
Yes, I've read your file. I've also read your dog file. So let's cut the crap, shall we? This whole hungover, sure play, don't know which way is up act, I'm not buying it. I trust you about as far as I can throw you.
It's a double pleasure to deceive the deceiver.
Niccolo Machiavelli. It was on your shelf.
Oh my God, I think I fucking love you.
That's too bad.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Movie Oblivion, the podcast about feature films based on comic books and comic strips that people have stopped talking about. We are your hosts, Jordan and Kumar, that's me.
And me.
And this week we're doing the 29th Blondie film, Atomic Blondie. Starring Charlize Theron as Blondie. No, it's not Atomic Blondie, it's Atomic Blonde. Came out in 2017.
Yes, based on a comic called The Coldest City from 2012, I believe.
Right.
Okay, we have two bits of business before we get to pause the podcast.
Brilliant.
One is I got an email from Aiden, who's the guy who usually writes in about our manga-related episodes.
Excellent.
And he just wanted to point out that Obayashi had done a movie based on Blackjack, Osamu Tezuka's Blackjack.
Oh, wow.
Which came out 3 months after House.
How is that possible?
It's Japanese gonzo filmmaking is how it's possible. And so that, if we can find good copies of that, we'll do that.
Yes, we will.
The other bit of business is Here has been released on streaming, so I was able to check the credits.
Great.
And the Richard Maguire credit is the third credit. So you get directed by Zemeckis, written by Eric Roth and Robert Zemeckis, and the third credit is based on the graphic novel by Richard Maguire.
Okay.
So there was no conspiracy. Unfortunately.
We just weren't attentive.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay, let's do it. Pause the podcast. Now, I'm going to say this is when you have pretty much...
If you want to watch the film, and I think you should pause the podcast.
Yes, okay. This is interesting. This is a really interesting one because it's an espionage story. There are lots of twists and turns and backstabs. The comic and the movie kind of follow the same plot, but actually the twists are different because there are some things which are secrets in the comic
that are well known.
They just show you on screen who shot that guy. It's a secret in the comic for 200 pages. In the movie, they just show you who shot that guy when it happens.
Yes.
Yes. And also,
and things that exist that are fake in the comic are real in the film.
Yes, we will talk about that.
And something that. There's a big reveal in the comic about a double agent that comes at the very end of the book, which is, again, we know about this double agent from the start of the film.
Yes, but there's an additional twist in the movie.
Yes.
So there's an
added
it's a triple agent twist.
Because, I mean, I'm assuming you've paused by now and come back. There's a pretty obvious twist, I would say, about who is the double agent.
In fact, I'm going to give a huge spoil right here and say, if you've ever seen No Way Out with Kevin Costner, you know how this is going to end.
Yeah.
The comic...
Or if you're even vaguely familiar with spy tropes.
Yes.
So the film does its best to kind of subvert the expected trope by adding would you call it a double twist?
Maybe.
I think we're talking about the end of the film here.
I don't think they were trying to subvert. I think they were trying to have a Hollywood safe ending.
All right, well, we'll talk about that when we get to it.
I don't think they were trying to subvert. I think they were trying to revert. They're trying to make it safe again. They're trying to make it happy. Here's our hero, instead of revealing that our hero is actually the enemy.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's... you're right. You're right. No, we can both be right, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the ending.
Okay, so The Coldest City, as I mentioned, the comic came out in 2012. I believe it came out as a graphic novel of 170 pages. I don't think it was issues, but we've got to come back to that in a minute.
Okay.
But it came out from Oni Press, who published Ciudad Extraction.
Which has a lot in common with this book, I think.
Yes, in many ways.
Yeah.
And it was written by Antony Johnston. Now, he is a writer I only know for adapting dozens of Alan Moore short stories for Avatar Press.
So this is Alan Moore's prose. So
Yes.
Alan Moore, as well as being a comic book author,
Yeah.
also writes traditional novels, short stories, other stuff like essays and things like
Poems.
that. Yes. And this guy, Antony Johnston, he adapts Alan Moore's prose work into comic books.
Yeah, so
which
in
is
the
this-
early 2000s...
So how do you feel about this?
No, well, in the early 2000s, this guy, the publisher of Avatar, I think his name is William Christensen, I might be wrong about that, he started just licensing every Alan Moore prose thing he could find.
Right.
Alan Moore was happy for the paychecks. This was the time when he's having some tax trouble.
Okay.
And this is when he wrote, actually there's a tie-in here. So he had written a short story, this Lovecraftian short story, ring the bell again please, that's a double ring.
Oh my god.
He'd written a Lovecraft story
Courtyard.
called The Courtyard,
Yep.
which Antony Johnston adapted into comics form, but that led into Neonomicon,
Yeah.
which was an actual comic sequel to that story, which
Yep.
Alan Moore wrote, and then
Providence.
which is a major centerpiece in
So
Alan
what's the
Moore's
causal
career.
link, if there is one, between Antony Johnston's adaptation of Courtyard and Neonomicon and Providence?
We wouldn't. I don't think we would have gotten to Neonomicon, but Neonomicon was also written because he had a tax bill, right?
Okay.
Alan Moore's like, I got to pay this bill, and this guy at Avatar will pay me the bucks
If I write a sequel.
if I write a sequel, or even just from
Courtyard.
licensing the stories alone. So he's like, yeah, okay, so he wrote this sequel and he got paid for that and he paid his bill or whatever, but then that kind of led into Providence, which is an absolute
very
mighty
good.
epic of Alan Moore's
That's
career.
pretty good. It's probably his... Yeah. It's his best stuff in...
So I actually
in his-
own tons of these Antony Johnston adaptations. I read them once and then never look at them again.
Okay, how do you feel about them? Because I haven't read any of them, except for Courtyard.
It's
I think you've
Look,
got to have a lot of balls to adapt
you know what?
Alan Moore back
I
into
agree,
comic
because a
book
lot
form.
of the things is Alan Moore always goes into how is this medium functioning. So he writes the prose in a way that it can only function as prose. So a lot is lost when it ends up in a comic as a comic book, right? It doesn't. It's not quite working.
That makes sense. I mean, he's no Alan Moore.
No,
Just having read...
no. It was drawn by a fellow named Sam Hart. I don't really know him, but I looked at his website, and he works in a lot of different styles, it seems. But for this book, he has chosen to work in very stark black and white.
Yeah,
no gray tones.
We're talking
ironic.
about Coldest City again now.
Yeah. Ironic that there's no gray tones in here. It's just black and white. It's very minimalist style. Almost sometimes barely draws in the backgrounds or even
Yes.
people's faces if they're not necessary. 2 to 4 panels to a page,
Yes.
5 at the most.
Yep. Infuriating, the lack of detail in the faces. I don't know
Yes,
if
because
this is-
sometimes you're supposed to be that guy was that guy from that earlier scene, but it's hard to
There
tell.
are reveals where we're supposed to recognize the character, and I have no clue who it is.
Yes, and in fact, sometimes you assume he's working by coding. Like, when the CIA agent shows up, he's always wearing this fedora. And you're like, okay, that's how you identify that CIA agent. Then later in the book, when character B is killed by a character in fedora, you assume it's a CIA guy, but that's not
But it
the
wasn't.
case. It wasn't. It's just the limitation of this guy that they've asked to draw 170 pages in, I'm assuming, a very short time. But I think it maybe kind of is the right style for this book, which is supposed to be a Jean Le Carré style espionage story. This is not. There's almost no action in it. There's
very little.
Very rarely does she end up in a fight with
Massive contrast to the movie.
somebody. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, look, I'm going to go on record now. I didn't like the art one bit. I found it very dull. Very like having no visual energy. It's not just the fact that there's no action.
Right.
There's no energy in any of the panels.
Right.
People are just sort of standing around a lot. With very little detail in their
Yes.
faces, so not a lot of emotional kind of
Yeah.
like interpretable.
That's right.
And I find that in a supposed to be an intense story about deception and sorts of things that I don't know. Is everyone just as faceless mannequins? Is that you could make a case thematically for it, but it
Yes.
doesn't make it fun to read.
Yes.
I can read you
Here's
here.
my other question about it, because I think I think this book might have worked better as prose, but then it would just seem like a Jean Le Carré knockoff, right?
Well, that's right.
But this is the kind of it's in that mood, that Le Carré style, which was kind of the anti-James Bond thing, which was not about glamour, it was about how miserable it was to be a spy. And this is kind of in that mode, right? Now, my thing is, Eddie Campbell has this rule in comics that if you don't show it, it didn't happen. And I think the opposite is also true. If you show it, it happened.
Yes. Oh, well, let's talk about that.
My question is, the whole story is recounted by this spy who's been on a mission, and then at the end, and we see all the things that she has done on this mission, and there's no voiceover captions while she's narrating this, which is an interesting difference from the movie, but we just see the things happen. At the end, we're revealed that maybe things played out differently. I'm not quite sure what happened, but if there were discrepancies from what we were shown and what she told us, then comics was not the right medium to tell the story.
I completely agree, and I'm so glad you brought up that Eddie Campbell quote, because I don't think unreliable narrator works in comics. For the reason you just said.
Yes, unless you have a caption.
Unless you have captions.
Where she says, I never saw that guy, and then we have a panel of her shooting the guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
The panel of her shooting the guy, but the voiceover says, I never met that guy in my life. Yes, exactly.
Yes, I got you. The fact that, I checked out of this comic completely when I got to the end, when it was revealed that Lorraine, who is narrating the events of the comic and we watch them happening, was lying about all sorts of things.
Yes.
At that point, I just threw up my hands and said, I just wasted 170 pages because I don't know if any of that happened.
Well...
And yet, I don't know what... All of that could have been false. It could have just been a big pack of lies. And yet, it was shown to me. Here's something which I think the film... Let's talk about the film. This is something the film does better, because the things we see in the film happen. The film isn't making this, I think, error.
Yes.
We don't get unreliable narrator or lies. We can hear...
Yeah.
We can hear Lorraine in the film speaking, and if she says something that contradicts with what we're seeing, we know we're seeing a fib. Right. Whereas that never happens in the comic, and I just, like I said, I was just infuriated.
Look, I read it twice, trying to unravel all the spycraft that was going on, and I think maybe there aren't contradictions in what we're shown and what she says, but he's trying to pull a Memento here, where the final scene makes you look back at everything that happened previously and reevaluate it.
I don't think so. I think instead we're shown points that she lied. Yeah. To give us a new story. Yeah. At the end. I don't think...
Right.
I only read it once. Okay. And I did mean to go back and read it again. I wrote an enormous list. I've written something like 300 pages, 300 words worth of questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
About what that I wanted to go back and check, but I couldn't summon up the enthusiasm to do it because I found this comic, and because of the aforementioned frustration. But I think how it ends is we have 8 to 10 pages of sort of grayed out panels showing us...
Oh, those are the only grey panels, yes. Right. Flashbacks to things that had happened earlier.
Showing us things that...
people had said and stuff like that.
And what really happened.
Yeah.
So we see Lorraine going and doing things different to what she told her handlers in that meeting.
Yes.
And at that point, I'm just like, well, if Lorraine was... And the thing is, Lorraine must have lied about more. If Lorraine lied about those things, she could have been lying about anything. Yeah. There are characters we meet. Merkel, the Spiv from East Germany, played by Bill Skarsgård in the film. Yeah. He might never have existed. Because she has no reason to speak to a Spiv if the MacGuffin isn't real, and we find out in the comic that the MacGuffin is not real. Yeah. So he might have been... So I was introduced to a character that might not exist.
Okay, well...
I just found that so fucking annoying.
Well, okay, we're into a tangle.
Should we go back to the stuff?
Okay, let's go back a little bit. So, by the way, we open... The comic opens with cinematic credits of, like, Coldest City, a graphic novel illustrated by Antony Johnston. So they're kind of going for a movie kind of feel here. Like
Kill a Condom, wow.
Yeah. We start with, it's the Berlin Wall's about to come down, it's the eve, and this guy who we know, this is about spies, he's saying, like, you know, it's over for us.
This is Percival.
Yeah, and then he's shot by someone, but then we see a woman's shoe, like, standing.
A high-heeled shoe.
Standing in with tights. So we know... and there's
woman
smoke.
Has witnessed...
or shot him.
Yes,
we can't tell. Which was a bit... Okay. So what's happened is now we get a flashback to like several days earlier. It's November 11th. Or no, that's when it's all over. But now she comes in for a debrief.
I think that you are not a fan, and I also am not a fan of the cut to however many days earlier.
Yeah, I typically don't like it. Yeah,
I would like to say at this point that I don't really like the chronological jumping around that both the comic and the film do.
Yeah,
I don't really like it.
Yeah.
I think it just muddies it up and makes it confusing.
Okay, so what's happening? Another interesting thing about this book is there's a lot of German in it, which is not translated.
Gratuitous German.
And there's a lot of spy jargon, which I actually like that because he never explains what it is. He just gives you all the spy lingo, and it plays as, I don't know if it is more authentic, but it plays as more authentic than your typical James Bond.
I found it irritating. I think you can do that. A little to add a little exoticism and realism, but it's constant. Like I feel like he just hopped on Google.
I don't know because I actually tried to look up some of these terms like CX when they're talking about information. I was like, what is that? I couldn't find the answer.
Yeah, like people are being referred to by code letters.
Yeah.
ME1, ME2 for the head agent and his second agent in Berlin. Sometimes
Burr 1, BER1, Burr 1 and Burr 2.
Oh, I thought it was M. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And like they even at one point they use GDR instead of just saying East Germany.
Yeah.
Something like that. That sort of thing. It started to take me out.
No, that's what put me in. I didn't like it in the movie when there was all hand holding. All that was taken out completely. Okay. In the movie, it's just like, here you are, dummies. You can understand this, can't you? Whereas here, there's no hand holding. I actually appreciated it. Okay. So what's happened is there were two key agents in Berlin. The UK has two agents, Burr 1 and Burr 2.
I just thought it was ME1 and ME2.
I don't know.
Anyway, just like it goes. Sorry.
Burr 2, his real name is James Gascoigne.
Yep.
And they fished him out of a river. He's been killed.
We never see him alive.
No, we never see him alive. We hear but supposedly he had been in contact with somebody on the east side of the wall.
Yes.
A Stasi officer who had a...
Stasi is the East German secret police?
Yes, so he had a list of all the agents. Now, supposedly we're told that there are a half dozen Allied agents and like maybe 3 times that number of
CIA
Russian agents.
Oh, right, Russian agents.
In Berlin. So we're looking at about 40 agents total running around.
So first of all, this list. All right, so this is the MacGuffin. The list.
Yes.
This is what everyone's after.
Yes.
A list of every Allied agent in Berlin.
Yes.
So that's UK, France, presumably West German, American, maybe, sort of like Belgium, Netherlands, those ones.
Okay.
Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, like the whatever that axis is. Okay, fine, but this list's existence is ridiculous. How would this Stasi agent have possibly come across this information?
I don't know, but I want to interrupt here.
Okay.
And I want to point out that this is also the plot of Mission Impossible 1,
okay,
The Salzburg Connection, and Skyfall, and a movie called Spy Killer from 1969 are all about
a list of agents?
A complete list of every agent operating in Zone XYZ.
Okay, I hate it even more now.
So it's...
Come up with a different MacGuffin.
Actually, the good thing about this MacGuffin is that it turns out later in the book we learned that it never actually existed.
I don't know if that's a good thing, but...
It's better than it existing in... This is, I think, after Skyfall and definitely Mission Impossible 1, which had the same plot. Let's find the list of all these agents and these Salzburg Connection and Spy Killer.
I'm so glad that you did that research.
Anyway, so, because I remembered them, because I remembered when I was watching Skyfall, I was like, this is the same as Mission Impossible 1. And I had read this book, Salzburg Connection, which was made to a movie. When I was a kid, I had read that novel. Anyway,
Well, the problem with these lists is, the list exists... Oh, okay, so the list is not real in the comic, but is real in the film. In both cases, it's a Stasi officer that has this list.
Yes.
On the east side of the wall. Yeah. In East Germany, in East Berlin.
Yeah.
He knows about all of these Allied agents. How did he get this information?
Yeah, no, we don't get... Well...
Was it collected by the East German state security?
Yeah,
in which case, it's known to everyone, including the Soviets. including Moscow.
Yeah.
So, boom.
In the movie, it makes less sense because this list exists. In the comic, it's...
Well, I think the movie goes into less detail. In the movie, it's not a list of every Allied officer operating in Berlin.
It is.
They just
and everything they've ever done. All their activities.
Right, of course.
It's more detail.
Right.
It's triple the detail.
Yeah, in fact, you're right.
It's every mission they've ever been on a microfilm that they put inside watches.
Oh, that's just so dumb. I want to talk about that later. Okay, we've got to keep talking about the comic.
Okay. So, he's been killed, they think, by... According to Burr 1, the first agent, whose name is David...
Percival.
According to him, Gascoigne had gotten this list from
Spyglass.
Spyglass.
He had got it or was supposed to get it.
And was probably killed by Bakhtin, and Bakhtin was a Russian agent who went back to Russia but never got back to Russia. So Burr 1, David Percival, is suggesting that the list is still in Berlin.
Yes. Okay, so Percival has reported this to his superiors in London.
Yes.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah. Okay, so Lorraine's mission is to go over there, find the list.
Yes. She's being sent officially. Her official story is she's going to collect Gascoigne's body.
Yes, that's her cover story.
She's a civil servant, but her real mission is get that list by hook or by crook.
Yes, and she's only got the weekend.
Why do they send her? So she's allegedly she is not familiar with Berlin. She doesn't speak German. She speaks Russian fluently. She's been doing a lot of work, across the Iron Curtain, presumably in the Soviet Union itself.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
is what they tell us.
Yeah,
but they're sending her specifically to Berlin because they decided that Berlin's become a bit of a rat's nest.
Yeah.
They think Percival has got old. For years, he's been refusing to be reassigned or to come home to London. So they've decided they don't trust...
Yeah, something's fishy about this guy.
They don't trust this guy. They don't understand why Gascoigne's been killed. So they're sending in someone that doesn't know the lay of the land to sort of shake things up.
Yes, and also the Russian agents wouldn't recognize her because that's what they're assuming.
That's the other reason.
Because she's an outsider.
Except she's made as soon as she lands by a French guy.
Yes.
Why? Why is she recognized by this French guy? How would he possibly know who she is? He's waiting for her at the airport.
Yep.
There's no reason.
Well, there is a reason.
Oh yes, there is a reason.
Because Burr 1 is waiting to pick her up at the airport. David Percival is at the airport to pick her up.
And there's another reason too why he would know who she is, which we'll get into.
Yes, but I think basically
this comic's such a mess.
Looking at this scene, I don't think it's a mess. I think it's just it's too deep. I think it's Jean le Carré deep. So I think what's happened. Another reading of this is that they know, the French side knows that because this list is missing, keep an eye on David Percival. If he picks up anyone from the airport, that's probably going to be somebody that's here to come after the list.
Except there is no list.
But he doesn't know it.
Pierre doesn't know it.
Pierre doesn't know it.
Well, maybe he does, or maybe he doesn't.
Anyway, so we find out at this point that David Percival, the reason he doesn't come back is he's a huge misogynist. And he hates Thatcher.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not taking orders from women. He hates that this woman has been sent here to take over his case on his turf. He's this dumpy old guy. He's an old dinosaur. This is a theme that comes up again a few times, is that these guys, these old spies, are like kind of craving the old days when you could actually have a gun and stuff like this and hunt people down, but they're all dinosaurs now. There's a scene where she asks him for a gun, and he says to her, "Are you crazy? This isn't the Wild West.
Yep.
I'm not giving you a gun." Keep that line in mind for when we get to the movie. Okay,
well, it's a different kind of movie.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's a different kind of story. The movie.
Well,
it's not. It's John Wick.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's the same director.
It's Jane Wick. Yeah, it's the same director.
But in the movie, the head of MI6 says to her, "Berlin is the Wild West."
You're right.
It's literally the opposite line of the line that's in the comic. It's amazing.
Yeah. That's got to be some self-awareness right there.
Yeah.
You hope so.
Okay, so so she ends up meeting
She knows her way around Berlin suspiciously. He says to her, "How do you know your way around Berlin?" She says, "I can read a map."
Yeah.
But we later find out she's been to Berlin before.
Yeah. So they meet with the CIA agent there, who David has told about, and he's exposed her to this agent. She's like, "What the hell are you doing?" He just seems to be incompetent at every turn. This Percival guy.
Yeah, he's just They just meet in a park and have a chat. The CIA agent's very hostile.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. She is... okay, so she gets the passport number of Gascoigne from him, so she can collect the body. And she also... He gives her a business card for this bar. Because she wants to learn the lay of the land, so she's going to go to this bar. Meanwhile, this other guy, tough-looking guy, gets off the plane and arrives in Berlin. We're, not sure who this guy is yet. Now, she goes to the bar... And she's approached by the tough guy that had arrived at the airport.
Who is Polish.
He claims to be Polish. But then the French agent that's been following her...
Shoos him off.
Shoos that guy away.
By pretending to be her partner. Boyfriend.
And he says he runs a restaurant and come to my restaurant. He doesn't reveal that he's a spy. But she's already sniffed him out. She's spotted him following her.
Yeah.
Whatever. She goes to collect the body, but she's written down the passport number wrong.
And then the Germans won't release the body to her with the wrong passport number because they're German.
So now it's tied up. She's actually bought herself more time by deliberately
an extra week. And Percival's very angry.
Percival's, he's like really
he just wants her gone.
Yeah.
Why? Because he's a misogynist?
Yeah, I think. Well, I think that and also he knows that he's. We don't know at this stage, but he's been a bad boy. And she could expose... Oh, yeah.
What's he... Okay, well, let's jump ahead.
He's killed Gascoigne.
He killed Gascoigne?
Yeah.
Do we find that out, do we?
Yes.
Why did he kill Gascoigne?
Okay, wait a second. I might be confusing storylines here. But she hears from this French guy... Because she goes back to his apartment and then exposes that she knows he's a spy.
Yeah.
He reveals that there's a spy... This is a network of mercenaries called...
Icemen.
Icemen.
Well, assassins.
Assassins. They are spies.
And her superiors laughed this off. They said, this is the real world.
Yeah.
There aren't shadowy networks of assassins in real life.
Yeah.
And there are. Because she made all this up.
Right.
There are no Icemen.
Right.
This is part of her story to trick her superiors into thinking she's a naive. She wants her superiors to think she's stupid.
Was it all made up? But then what are the photos of... Because we've got photos of Percival meeting with these...
There are no photos. They're not real. Because in the final scenes we see that the photos were never of Percival, they were of Lorraine.
No, there were also photos of Lorraine.
No, I only read it once, but my impression was no, there were
No, there's both. There's two. There's photos of her with these people, and there's photos of because I did notice this detail on the second read through.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so she needs to.
Also, just to take a step back for a moment, Percival is this big asshole who's extremely sexist and rude, and I think that's confirmed at one point by the superiors back in London that they know he has a massive problem with Margaret Thatcher. That's a point in his favour as far as I'm concerned, but. Do we know that because Lorraine is an unreliable narrator, we don't know if he said any of these things? If he was as big a jerk to her as he apparently is.
I'm assuming from second read through that all these scenes happened.
You see, I've yielded the advantage to you by not going back and reading the second time.
It's a legit concern if you only read it once that did these scenes actually happen. But if that's not the case, why hasn't he come home for 10 years?
Yeah, who knows? Could be some other reason. It might not necessarily be because he's misogynist. He might just be set in his ways. He might love it.
Maybe.
We just don't know. And I think that's it. I don't think that when my read, I didn't get the impression that it was solely because he hated Thatcher.
I did, because the superiors say the same thing actually back in the booth when they're recording.
They do say that.
They talk about that fact.
That he has a problem with Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
But, I also got the sense that when he talks about why he's still in Berlin, he's just sort of... He sort of has decided that no one else understands Berlin the way he does.
I think, no...
That he's he's decided he's the only one that... No, this is common with people who have been in authority for a long time.
Sure.
They decide that they can't... That no one can do the job. That's why political leaders seldomly resign.
Yeah.
They're almost always forced out.
But there is an element here of... It's a bit like Silence of the Lambs, where any scene where Clarice Starling is interacting with male police, FBI, there's always...
Yeah. I read an interview.
Ever-present level of sexism that's and chauvinism. That's
I read an
happening at
interview
her.
with the author,
Yeah.
Antony Johnston, and he said specifically this is what he wanted to do with the comic.
Right.
He wanted Lorraine to be operating in an old-fashioned sexist environment.
Yeah.
Which I guess is supposed to add savour to the fact that she hoodwinks them. She
Yeah.
puts one over them.
Okay, so while she was out on a dinner, she went to Pierre's restaurant. She met this peddler outside, and she goes and has a conversation with the peddler. We don't know what it's about. He's like, Pierre assumes he's selling fake watches or something, but actually he's from the east side of the wall. She wants to get over there to find information about the list on that side, because the list has not turned up. She's assuming it's going to turn up in the black market.
Except there is no list. So what's the point of this? What's the point of this?
Well, she doesn't know the list doesn't exist.
Yes, she does.
At this point, no, she doesn't know that the list... At this point, everybody's assuming that the list is still real.
Oh, that's possible, I suppose.
She goes over. She also gets a gun from this guy. She buys a gun from this peddler when she goes over there. She gets a fake identity. She goes over there to try to find out about the list. She gets...
So you think she believed the list was... Okay, sorry, I need to rewind a second.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out the comic in real time. I hope everyone's enjoying listening to this.
Yeah.
So she probably thought the list was real when she was sent on the mission.
Yeah.
Did she never find
She
out the
doesn't-
list was... At what point did she find out the list is fake then?
Maybe when her superiors tell her in the office.
That can't be, though.
Aren't they the ones that reveal... No, or does she...
They reveal to us, the reader, that there was no list.
Who's
But
the one
how
that
could she
figures
not
out-
have known that there was no list at that point?
Because they told her there's a list, go find the list.
But
Why
I mean-
would she... Unless she had inside info at that stage... She doesn't figure out that there's... Oh no, she is the one that figures out that there's no list once she figures out the Iceman thing.
But the Iceman thing's made up. She made up the stuff about Iceman.
Well, we have to go through that in order. So first there's assumption there's a list and that Gascoigne was killed for the list. But what she figures is that there never was a list, right? She's the one that thinks, I don't think there's, I think what happened was, she says, Gascoigne figured out about the Iceman, or was an Iceman, and he was going to expose Percival. So Percival killed him, then killed Bactine and blamed it on Bactine, scapegoated Bactine.
Of course, except there was never a list. And I assumed that, I don't know why Gascoigne was killed. So there was never a list. We're told that at the end. So Percival, so the list gets back to London somehow to explain the death of Gascoigne. Someone at some point made it up to explain Gascoigne's death. I assumed it was... Well, we know Percival did it because Percival admits at the end of the book that he knew the list was fake, that there was no list. He actually has a line of dialogue where he says it. So Gascoigne reported back to his superiors in London about a fake list. Why would he do that? The comic, I feel, pretty heavily implies that Lorraine is the reason why a fake list exists, because of her. I mean, we've been dancing around it for a while. She's the double agent. She's a double agent.
Yes, we learned partway through. We learned that there's a British double agent, a British agent who is also giving info.
Well, we only find out about it at the end.
Not
halfway
like
through.
halfway through.
Are you sure?
Yeah. We learned that there's an agent called Satchel.
Stachel in the comic.
Stachel.
German for sting.
Right. So we learned that it's about halfway through. Because as soon as they mentioned it, I was like, oh, this is going to be No Way Out, and she's going to be the double agent.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like
you're
halfway.
right. It was. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
I kind of predicted that was how it was going to end.
Yeah.
By the way, so if we don't know why Gascoigne was killed or who killed Gascoigne, or maybe.
The thing, I don't understand why Percival would report back to MI6 about a list he knew was fake.
Because he was trying to deflect, he was trying to create a reason for Gascoigne to be dead. So, Bactine killed him to get this list.
But there was no list.
That's right, he made it up.
So, but why?
Percival made it up. So
why did he
that would have a motive for Bactine to kill Gascoigne to get the list from him. Because the list was not found on Gascoigne's body.
In that case, why
he
did
calls up his
Percival...
boss, he says, hey, Gascoigne was killed because Bactine stole this list of all the agents off his body. I don't know where the list is now.
Yes, we know for a fact that Percival made it up. But why would he do that? Because the only secret that needs
because if he doesn't do that, then there's no reason for Bactine to have killed...
But then why did Bactine kill him?
Because Bactine thought there was a list.
So Percival made up the list to make Bactine kill Gascoigne? Why would Percival want Gascoigne dead?
No, Bactine didn't kill... Gascoigne.
Who
Percival killed Gascoigne.
How do we know that for certain?
Well, I think
One of my questions is who killed Gascoigne and why?
I think Percival killed Gascoigne, as she says, and then framed Bactine for it by making up the list. Otherwise, there's no.
But then why? Because the story's not about Percival's betrayal; it's about Lorraine's betrayal. Ultimately, my thought was that Gascoigne probably rumbled Lorraine at some point, and she had him killed.
Well, that is the plot of the movie. It seems, or partly the plot of the movie. Okay, I just want to I just want to open one tab here and mention that this is reminding me very much of The Big Sleep, because in The Big Sleep, like one of the characters' drivers is killed. Is found murdered.
Okay.
And as they were making the movie, at some point, as they were on set, somebody said, "Who killed the driver?" And everybody looked at each other, and they were like, and they asked the screenwriter, "Who killed the driver?" He's like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
They called up Raymond Chandler. They said, "Who killed the driver?" Raymond Chandler didn't know.
Oh my god, yep. I believe this.
Right?
I think Johnston's got too wrapped up in his own cleverness, and he's left plot holes.
Okay.
I think I only read it once. I would like to reiterate, but my sense when I got to the end was that Lorraine had manipulated all events, and that when Gascoigne was probably killed, because she's the prime mover, it was probably on her orders or with her agency. But then that raises the question of why Percival would invent a story about a list and report it back to MI6.
Yes.
Because there is no list.
If you read it that way.
You know...
but if you... But that means... Yeah, so you're saying she came up with the story of the list.
That seems to be the likely reading.
But then it doesn't explain why... It creates other holes, yeah.
But then, so if we discard that and take what you were saying, that Lorraine is pursuing the list in good faith at this point because she thinks it might be real.
Yeah.
Although I don't see how she could think that, because it's revealed later that she has been operating in Berlin all this time. How would she be able to do that without MI6 being aware of it?
I don't think she was operating in Berlin.
There's photos of her in Berlin.
Yes, but...
Meeting with, not Bactine, but the other guy, the Pole, and...
Bermovich or something like that?
Bermovich is in the film.
Yeah. That is Bermovich is the guy that...
So I don't understand how she could be in... Like, we've established that Berlin's crawling with spies, and Pierre made her as soon as she landed at the airport.
Which it shouldn't be, because MI6 has told us at the beginning of the graphic novel there's only 6 Allied agents and maybe 18 Russian agents, so there's 24 agents, and David gives her a business card to this bar. She goes there,
and she runs into two agents.
First the Russian approaches her, then the French guy approaches her, and meanwhile David's sitting in the corner watching them.
So there's
4 agents in this one bar that he told her to go to.
Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
All right, but I would say that it's even more ridiculous in the movie. This business about the card for the bar.
I'm a little... Yeah, I agree. I'm expect because a Russian gives it to her, a Soviet agent.
Before they tried to kill her? Why? Why give her the business card for this bar, which is crawling with agents as it is in the comic?
Yes, I completely agree. The film has heaps of problems. But, I mean, to jump ahead, I have less of a problem with the film making these kinds of errors, because the film is an action movie, not a tense, a few good men...
Yeah...
the usual suspects kind of psy-ops drama.
Yes.
It's about Charlize Theron kicking the shit out of guys and looking fantastic while she's doing it.
Yes.
So I'm a little more forgiving of it. In this comic, which Johnston has written to be a Le Carre style, nested narratives, crazy, betrayal, double cross, triple cross.
Yeah.
It's a problem when I can't make sense of your narrative.
Yes. Okay. So now David Percival in Berlin gets word that Spyglass wants to defect.
Yeah. This is the Stasi.
They're like, okay, we need to get him out. So he's going to wait on a safe house on this side, on the west side. She's going to go in. They've come up with this plan where because the protests are happening, the wall's about to come down.
This is accurate.
I'm going to walk him out. We're going to get mixed up in the crowds. We're going to get some placards, pretend to be protesters, and I'm going to sneak him out that way.
Yeah.
Percival is the only one who knows about this plan. It's those two and Spyglass himself.
Yep.
So she goes over there. As they're leaving, there's a sniper that shoots Spyglass dead.
Yeah.
And
Lorraine says that this was probably on Percival's orders.
yeah, because he's the only one that knew about it.
Except it was probably on her orders. Again, because she's the prime mover here.
Yes, in fact, one of the, I think maybe even the CIA agent himself suspects this during the debriefing. He says, what a coincidence that they didn't target you.
Yeah.
As if, and then she's like, what are you implying? And then they have to leave it there. And I have to say,
well, we find out...
if we're trying to reveal that, we'll get to it.
I've written down, Spyglass is a Stasi informer with the list in commas. He tries to defect, is killed. Why do we think he has the list? Question mark. He is probably killed on Lorraine's orders because she's a good commie.
But we know that he doesn't have the list. They know
but
that
there is no list. So the only reason...
No.
Assume
there's a list.
And Percival knows there's no list. Because at the end of the comic he says, there is no list.
Yes, that's right.
It's fake.
Yeah.
Why? There's no reason for Spyglass to be killed then. The only possible reason for him to be killed, I decided, is that Lorraine has him killed because she's a communist. She think he's a traitor because he's defecting. There's no other reason for him to be killed.
These reasons are given. I can't delineate all of them, but basically, I think he still remembers the names on the list. So they say basically having him is as good as having the list, even though we don't have the list on paper.
But there's no list.
Well, this is what Percival tells her. If we have him, it's as good as having the list.
So we're assuming that Lorraine's operating in good faith at this point.
Yes.
A big ask since she's a traitor.
If he knows about the list, I think that would expose him as Sting. I think this is why I think this is why Percival wants him. He was hoping she would be eliminated too, is what we hear.
In Lorraine's narrative, Percival kills Spyglass because he could reveal that he's Satchel in the film. But since we know the list is false, and that's not a reason for Spyglass to be killed, then the question as to why he's killed is up in the air. I guess there's the reason I said that Lorraine just kills him because she's on the side of the Soviets and Spyglass is a traitor and deserves to die. Or maybe Percival has him killed to maintain the masquerade that there's a list because Spyglass could presumably confirm that...
There was a reason...
Doesn't Lorraine meet with Spyglass in the comic, or is it only in the film?
She only meets with him to get him out.
And she never asks him about whether or not there was a list. That's right, that's a plot point at the end. They ask her, did you get the info about the list? She says, I never brought it up. Yeah. So there may well have been no list. But I figured she was lying at that point. That's part of her web of... no way she's telling the truth then.
Yeah.
That's part of her web of lies to explain why Spyglass was killed. I think she killed Spyglass. I think she had him killed, rather.
Okay, anyway, so she runs up the stairs, fights the sniper. This is one of the only action sequences in the book. It's very rare. Like, she pulls a gun on Pierre. She finds a gun under his pillow when they're making out in the bed.
Yeah.
And she escapes via the sewer system.
Yeah.
And while she's down there, she sees Bakhtin's body. And it's a fresh body, and she's like, okay.
Are his eyes missing, or is it just the art?
It might just be the art. I don't think his eyes are missing.
Yeah. Why is Bakhtin dead?
Bakhtin is dead to cover up... Percival killed him to cover up the fact that he framed Bakhtin. Bakhtin's supposed to be missing.
Yeah, and hid him in a tunnel under the wall, under the dead zone.
Yeah.
How... So Percival killed him. Why did Percival kill him? To cover up the fact that there's no list. But why is Percival lying about a list then? Sorry.
To give Bakhtin a motive to kill Gascoigne.
Which brings me back to my original question. Why was Gascoigne killed?
Gascoigne was killed, well, assuming the Iceman theory, he was killed because he was on to... He was on to Percival. And there were two reasons given... I can't remember the second one, but it was like he could have either killed him because he knew about the Iceman or he was an Iceman and he was going to expose Percival. And we have pictures. Okay, so what happens is after this whole op goes south and Spyglass is killed, she gets a phone call from Pierre saying, I have something for you, come over.
Yeah.
So she's okay, but first she visits Percival. She's like, okay, I'm gonna go see Pierre, and he drops her off a few blocks away. He says, okay, you walk up there and go see him. I'll drop you off here. And And she goes and she finds Pierre dead, and she's like, "Oh no!"
And then she searches his house.
And she searches his house, and she finds a package full of photos
of Percival meeting with Soviets. Of
yes, and he had shown her. Pierre had shown her a photo before of Percival meeting with one of the Russian agents. I can't remember which one, and she finds more in the.
In the epilogue, on the other hand, however, we find out that Pierre has photos of her meeting with Soviets in Berlin
as well.
So already now, at this point, I'm like, well, Pierre would never have invited her to his home if he knew that she was working with Soviets.
Yes, that is a question. Like
he would never have said, "Hey, come over to my house and look at." Was he going to blackmail her?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a really dumb idea.
He
would have stayed the hell away from her, and he would have reported her immediately to his superiors in France. Because as far as we know, he's a good French agent. He's not engaged in whatever the seamy underbelly of Berlin is with these old hands that have gone native/rogue. He's fresh-faced and new. He hasn't been in Berlin that long, I don't think. Or is that just the film?
No, it's just the film.
There's no reason why he wouldn't have passed that on to France, and then France would have reported it to MI6, and then poof, there goes the plot.
Yeah.
Stachel Lorraine would have been exposed. So this makes no sense, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Well,
she tells them that she burned the photos. They're like, what the hell? And she gives some reason I can't remember, but all of her stories are quite feasible at the time that she's telling them.
Why does she burn the photos? Is it to protect Percival so that MI6 isn't embarrassed?
Yes, something like that.
But the real reason
because she's like, he was Stachel, she says.
That's right, and she doesn't want MI6 to be embarrassed. But the real reason she burns them is because she's in them.
Yes, that's right. There's at least one photo with her, but the other photos are there. So when I read this the first time, because you see on one page, you see the photos. I know what you're thinking, because the first time I read it, I was like, oh, we were told a lie, and then we get the real photo that it wasn't. Earlier in the book, when Pierre first shows the photos, we see Percival sitting with a Russian agent. Now we see her sitting with a Russian agent. You assume that this is what really happened, but actually, I think both photos are in the packet.
I agree. I think, maybe they both are in. And I mean, in the film, this is played as being very incriminating for Percival that he's meeting with Bremovich. But I think there are probably situations where the head of the head of the spy agency in Berlin could meet with his counterpart on the Soviet side, not suspiciously. I mean, I think this is the kind of thing spies do. I understand, like, Le Carre says spy work is generally pretty boring and is mostly just the exchange of money.
Yeah.
And people paying one another for, whatever size shoes Stalin is wearing.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's very, very bad if Lorraine is seen meeting Soviets in Berlin, because she has no reason to be in Berlin. We know from the start of the comic that she's never, ever been assigned to Berlin, and in fact, has never officially been there. And by the end of the comic, we find out that she's been there many times.
I don't know that she's been there.
She's been there at least
those
once.
photos might be from that week.
No, you think so? Oh,
it's possible. Because she extended her stay for a week. She could have met Bremovich in that time. By the way, I also want to point out that one of these photos is very clearly of David and Bakhtin, who he shouldn't have been meeting with, because we know
because he was killed by Bakhtin. Allegedly.
He killed Bakhtin. Bakhtin is not head of the KGB in Berlin. He's
I guess I can't really tell one character from another in this.
You have to look pretty
terrible
close and figure it out. But yeah, so at this stage, after they say, look, we're going to silence this case. It never happened. Go on vacation. She ends up.
She puts on a blonde wig, crosses the Iron Curtain, and they say, "Welcome, Comrade Stachel."
Yeah, she meets someone on the other side, and then she.
And at that point, it's revealed that this whole narrative has arguably been a tissue of lies, including the Iceman story, but not the List story. That she spun to put one over on her superiors and save her skin and her anonymity as a double agent and loyal communist.
Okay, actually, the Iceman story came from Pierre. Now, the problem is...
No. It comes from Pierre in the narrative.
But this is the thing. You're assuming that everything we see is made up by Lorraine. That's not necessarily the case.
Well, we have to... It's like... This narrative, as far as I'm concerned, is in a quantum state. It's all lies, and we can't tell what's a lie and what's truth. as far as I'm concerned, how do we know the truth from the lie?
Well, you know the truth
that
from
she's a fibber.
You know the truth from the lie because it's a comic and you see these panels on screen and there's no VO.
But we see false panels.
No, we don't.
It's revealed at the end that we saw false panels.
No.
If we could see one false panel,
there's
they could all
panels.
be false.
None of them are false
Yes,
panels.
they definitely are.
Which, name it. Name a panel that was a false panel.
When she burns the photos of Percival, but we know that she was actually burning photos of herself.
She burns all the photos.
Yeah.
But that doesn't contradict
you mean
anything.
that she might be burning a photo of herself in that panel, but we just can't see it?
Well, we don't see her. We only see her physically burn the photos on screen once.
I don't agree.
That's never contradicted anywhere else.
No, I think we need to go back to Eddie Campbell and that.
But that's what I'm saying, is if you follow what Eddie Campbell says, and what the things you see happening did happen, and Pierre did tell her about the Iceman, then maybe Pierre was wrong about that, but that's enough for her. She could latch onto that acorn and grow it into a lie. I'm saying that all these things that we see on panel, we can assume that they happened. I don't think anything is necessarily contradicted.
That's possible, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose that could be true. It didn't feel that way. It felt like what Johnston wanted us to think was that Lorraine had skillfully put one over on her sexist bosses.
I think the
by telling by constructing a narrative that would buy into. They wanted to believe that she was dumb enough to believe in a stupid Iceman conspiracy that's straight out of Ian Fleming. They know better.
Yeah.
The dumb woman thinks there's a John Wick style cartel of assassins.
Yeah.
But she was actually playing them because she is covering up her own.
Okay, so what has happened here is that you have been confused by Sam Hart's art and assumed that the photo of David meeting with Bremovich or whatever has been replaced with the real, what actually happened, of Lorraine meeting with Bremovich. And I'm saying those are two photos and everything we see happened is what actually happened.
Okay, that's possible. Yeah. I would need to read it again to be sure, and I am never going to read it again.
All right.
So it's forever going to remain uncertain. I've written here, Pierre invites Lorraine to his flat. Why?
Yeah.
To show her photos with her in them? That seems like a terrible idea.
Yeah.
How does Lorraine even know he has those photos when she goes looking for them? Pierre is killed. Why? Presumably on Lorraine's orders.
Oh, but we're... Oh, that's right. She tries to put them... Actually,
because
MI6 makes the jump that it was David Percival that killed him.
But it was a Soviet that killed her, wasn't it? Killed Pierre. Because, again, I'm struggling with Sam Hart's art.
Yeah.
But I seem to remember in that grey panel, it's, I think, a Soviet that's killing Pierre in that scene.
Yeah.
Why would they kill Pierre?
I don't know if we... Oh.
Unless it was to protect Starshall.
Yeah. It could be. By the way, so we said the part about Percival is killed by a Russian agent.
I think he's killed by the Pole... the Pole himself,
quite possibly. But she's at the scene, so... we saw at the opening sequence where we thought it was maybe a woman that killed him, in fact, her that killed him, based on the way it's laid out, in the opening pages, which is, as I was about to say earlier, kind of a weird choice if you're going to have a surprise twist at the end that she's the double agent, like to say on page 1 that she killed this guy.
I think you pretty much see it. You see it coming. I guess.
But anyway, it's kind of flipped at this stage where it's like, oh, she found the body. And actually, she does. Yeah, okay, she does say you. I don't know.
I think Johnston overestimates his own. I think his reach exceeds his grasp.
Yeah. There is a line here at the end after she's like, well, the Cold War's over, and her bosses are like, no, Russia will always be Russia, which I thought was a great line.
Yeah, that's a very 20. That's a very 2010s, 2020s line.
Yeah. Okay, let's move into the movie.
I feel like we've wasted far too much mental energy.
No, because that's what this book is about, and that's what the movie is, well, to a lesser extent, is this tangled spy web.
I think the movie's a bit clearer. I mean, as we said, the first thing it does is make the list true.
Okay. Yeah.
So that just clears up so much.
Yeah, sure.
People
they take out the Iceman
over the list, and the reason Lorraine is there and fucking shit up is because the list will reveal her.
No, but she didn't ask for the assignment. She's put on the assignment, right?
Yes.
So that doesn't add up. So hole number one, she doesn't go, can I please be assigned to Berlin? And then she goes looking for this list. She doesn't know the list exists until her bosses tell her about it.
That's a pretty big coincidence.
Like, come on. And she just happens, it's much like No Way Out. Oh, he just happened to be that spy that they chose to make the cover story about. Okay.
But I mean, it has the same problem in the comic, doesn't it? I mean, she's being sent to the... Unless she never was in Berlin. So you said that those photos might have been taken that week.
I think they were taken that week.
That didn't occur to me. I just assumed that they were from earlier.
No. I don't think she's gone back and forth. But it is certainly a time where, like, they don't have contact with spies once they leave. They're not cell phoning. There's no drop boxes, not that many, that they're, like, back and forth communication. Once a spy is off grid, you don't hear from them again. You don't know what they're doing.
But, they were all tripping over one another's toes. It seems pretty... No, I think you're right. She probably... Anyway, I don't want to talk about the comic anymore. Let's get back to the film.
Well, we will be talking about it some more. Okay, so this came out in 2017. Was directed by David Leitch, who was Leitch, who was uncredited co-director of John Wick.
Yep.
Director of Deadpool 2.
Okay.
Director of Fast and Furious Spins Hobbs and Shaw.
Okay.
Director of Bullet Train, which is terrible. I watched that a few weeks ago.
Right.
Director of Fall Guy, which I guess is okay.
Came out this year. I don't know much about it.
He was a second unit director on The Wolverine, the Michael Bay Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies.
Okay.
Civil War, Captain America Civil War. And he was
second unit director on Civil War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Captain America. And he did stunts on Blade, Daredevil, Constantine, V for Vendetta, 300, Speed Racer, X-Men Origins Wolverine.
So stunt director or coordinator
coordinator or he was a stuntman?
Or was he a stuntman? Wow. We have to exclude stuntmen because when I discovered last week
yeah.
that they are in everything.
Yes. I don't want to exclude them because I know Lexi Alexander's coming back for Batman and Robin. So
we can make an exception for Lexi Alexander, but I think stuntmen are in everything. I discovered everything, and I think unless they're credited as a creature actor the way Carl Ciafalio was for The Thing last week, we pretty much just other than that, you've got to start counting directors of photography. We've got to start counting the grip.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just want to also add that the writer Kurt Johnstad also wrote 300.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So immediately we start with
Gascoigne being killed.
Hip 80s music.
Yep. I love the music in this movie.
Super colorful, stylish. From frame one, Gascoigne's on the run. He's running at top speed. He's hit by a car. He flies up and crashes into the window of a van.
Yep.
The glass shatters. He lands on the street.
Yeah.
Bactine comes out. He's like, "Fuck you, Bactine." We got a CGI backdrop of East Berlin, which looks really fake.
Unfortunately, yeah. It does.
Much like Bullet Train, every shot of Tokyo looks like it was done on a 2006 computer. So I guess this is a thing for David Leitch. Gascoigne played by Sam Hargrave, director of Extraction.
Correct, and he appeared in Extraction.
Right. Yes.
As well.
Right. Okay.
Because he was the counter sniper on the bridge scene.
Okay. So, from second one.
It couldn't be more different. Color, movement,
music,
action.
It's like James Bond action, which is the opposite of what the comic was trying to do.
Yep.
Right. Well, this is trying to go. Let's make a John Wick James Bond movie. It's absolutely the opposite of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy in every way. For the second one.
Yeah. It's like John. Yeah. It feels like John Wick watching it. It's that kind of kinetic.
Yeah.
Few cuts.
Yes.
Very few cuts. In fact, we get a Extraction style continuous tape.
Longer. It's like 10 minutes. Like timed
longer than the Extraction one.
Yeah, 8 minutes it was.
Unbelievable scene.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Charlize Theron is incredible.
Yeah, and we'll get to that scene when we get to it.
At this might be a good point to read my favourite quote about Charlize Theron, which appeared in the New York Times in 2020 in a review of a film she appeared in that year. Watching Charlize Theron fight has become one of the singular pleasures of contemporary American cinema.
Yeah,
close as we're going to get to the endorphin rush of watching Gene Kelly dance or Judy Garland sing, or Charlie Chaplin pantomime.
Yep, absolutely.
I completely agree with that.
I think Jackie Chan beat her to that on all counts, but yes, absolutely. And as the older she gets, the more she does these movies, and every time she's amping it up again and again. You think, okay, she can't top it, and she keeps topping it.
I think it might have even been Old Guard that they were reviewing,
right?
Which we will come to.
We will get to that one. Yeah. Okay, so now we cut to, I think it says, we get the title card which says 10 days later. She is in an ice bath. Charlize is in an ice bath. She's all beat up, scarred,
She's completely naked, which should be amazing, but she's, as you said, completely bashed up. So this isn't played for titillation.
Yes, but is later in the movie, there's so many lingering shots up and down her body.
I want to talk about that later.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that later.
Okay, so and she's drinking vodka heavily. This is our Lorraine. This is not the Lorraine of the comic.
No, the Lorraine in the comic is very anodyne, bureaucratic.
Oh yeah, and when she shows up in the office, there's a hilarious line. When they give her assignment, they're like, they pull out her dossier and they're like, expert in hand-to-hand combat. I was like, okay, here we go. Yeah.
Couldn't be more different from the Le Carre Lorraine that we get in Coldest City, where, we know that Charlize Theron is going to fuck some shit up in this movie.
Yeah, so it says, we get the opening credits as she's going to the office.
10 days later is spray painted in lurid.
All the title cards are spray painted, like dripping paint.
And a lot of the sets, it was filmed in Berlin.
Okay.
And Budapest.
Okay.
Were the two cities it was filmed in. And the screenwriter, Kurt... What was his name again, Kumar?
Kurt Johnstad.
Kurt Johnstad. He apparently has some kind of punk sympathies.
Okay.
Like he's an old punk rocker or something from... And this film really plays up the kind of street art / punk aesthetic of the time.
Yeah.
I checked... punk was very much a thing in Berlin in the late 80s.
It was, yeah.
Enormous, actually. And there's a school that says that the punk subculture played a role in the full... it was very prominent in East Berlin, and they were very active in the kinds of protests that led to the fall of the Berlin Wall. So it's period accurate.
Yes, but maybe there's too much of it when we get to the character of David Percival. But we'll talk about that when we get to it.
Arguably, yeah. But I mean, it's period accurate, so I give it a pass. I mean, we're seeing the screenwriter's proclivities on display.
Yes, but again, it's very
this is a different film.
The comic would not have a spray paint.
This is a different story. Yeah, this is a different way of telling this story. This is larger than life characters.
Yeah.
Charlize Theron is in a miniskirt and heels for most of the movie, walloping guys and smoking. Everyone's very cool.
Yeah.
It couldn't be more different from the comic where everyone's bland and their faces are completely... They look like store mannequins. Everyone in this is really cool. Everyone smokes. Everyone drinks.
Yeah.
Charlize Theron has a graphic sex.
Yeah.
with
the camera spinning around and like doing all sorts of loopy-loop stuff.
And nothing's left to the imagination. She's completely naked.
Yes.
And as is her partner, who is female, played by Sofia Boutella.
Okay.
She's playing the French Pierre's character.
Yeah.
Here she's called Delphine, and she's a woman, a naive kind of like...
We'll talk about her when we get to her. Okay.
She's not... She appears in Kingsman.
Okay.
So she'll be back.
She'll be back. Okay. Opening credits as she's walking in the office. It says, based on the Oni Press graphic novel series, written and illustrated by Antony, Johnston, and Sam Hart. What a weird credit.
So maybe it was a series then, so it wasn't a...
Graphic novel series? I don't know.
Maybe because... I don't know, because there's been a prequel to Coldest City come out called Coldest Winter.
Oh. Okay, that explains it. I didn't even know about that.
I'm glad to clear that up. Finally, I get something right.
Okay, we meet her boss, Toby Jones. I can't remember his character's name, but we need to go into Toby Jones for a minute.
Yes.
Has collaborated with Alan Moore twice.
Really?
Can we ring the bell for that?
Yes.
He read one of the chapters of Voice of the Fire for the audiobook. And
was it the one where everyone's grunting and... Not the first chapter then?
No. And he also appeared in a movie with Alan Moore called By Ourselves, which is about the poet John Clare from Northampton.
Whoa.
Yep. And so he's been in. Were you going to list off his movie credits?
Well, the thing is, I'm reluctant because this movie is there are so many comic book movie actors in this film. I'm reluctant to talk about anyone that's not a comic book movie Oblivion character. So someone that we haven't discussed in a previous episode.
Okay.
But I will, as you say, Toby Jones will be back.
Yeah.
In the Centrinians movies.
Yes.
He appears in those.
Yes.
Also, he played Armin Zola.
Yep.
In the Captain America Marvel movies, although they are out of contention because they are MCU.
But Tintin is in.
Right, yeah.
So he's going to hit 3.
Yes, he will.
I also wanted to point out that
if we do more than one Centrinians, he might be in...
Yeah, that's right, yeah. His father was Freddie Jones.
Who is?
Who played Thufir Hawat in the 1984 David Lynch theme. Please ring the bell.
God, the bell! The clapper's gonna fall out of this bell.
Yes. I just wanted to point that out, because Freddie Jones also does the voiceover in the By Ourselves movie.
Okay.
Okay. So, so they give her the assignment. This is the scene where C, the head of MI6, says Berlin is the Wild West.
Yeah.
As I pointed out, exact opposite line from the comic.
Yes.
This is the scene where we learned that she was proficient in hand-to-hand combat. Yes. She's a super spy, unlike Lorraine in the comic, who they think is a kind of greenhorn.
Yeah.
Now we cut to Berlin, and
we're also told about Satchel in this scene.
Yes, that's right. Right off the bat, there's a double agent. Oh no, was it in this scene or is it later that we get a flashback to the scene and we hear about Satchel? I actually think it's later. I don't think we learn it.
No, according to my notes.
Okay.
It's likely to be this scene.
I think it was later, but
it's in the first 5-10 minutes.
Is it? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, Stachel is Satchel. So again, Satchel. So they dumb it down. Everything's been dumbed down.
I think. Yeah. Okay.
This is very much Charlize is spectacular in this movie. The style of it is spectacular, but this is a dumb movie. This is like Hobbs and Shaw, pretty dumb stuff. We can't have a character named Stachel. He's got to be named Satchel. Yeah. As if that makes any sense.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
Okay, so we cut to Percival.
Yes.
Who is not the pudgy old guy who's he is a misogynist, but not in the same way. This is a super hip punk dude who trades like jeans and American CDs and stuff for information in just like a rave. He's just like in a rave in East Berlin, and he's like, here, have some jeans, give me photos of like intel, like this kind of stuff. It's madness. Yeah. James McAvoy, of course.
Leto the Second.
Yes. Also Professor X. Yeah. And he is in the Sandman TV series, just wanted to mention.
So he is. He will also be back in Wanted.
Oh, is he in Wanted as well? Okay.
He's the protagonist.
Okay, right. So at this party, he meets with Spyglass.
Yeah.
And he says, like, I want that list.
This is in East Germany, I guess. Yeah. It's easy for him to cross back and forth. Yeah.
Spyglass it's not easy. We'll talk about how he crosses back and forth.
Spyglass here played by Eddie Marsan.
Yes.
Who was in V for Vendetta.
Yes. And will also be in Deadpool 2 if we ever get to those.
Yes.
Good actor. I really like him anytime he shows up in anything.
He was the director of the ear in V for Vendetta.
Yes,
Brian Etheridge.
That's right. So he meets with Spyglass. He's like, I want that list. He says, I gave that list to your agent. You're supposed to get me back to the other side. This is right. This is the first 5 minutes of the movie, really.
Yeah. So we know that. Okay. Yes. And he reveals that he's memorized the list.
Yes.
He has a photographic memory, not a real thing.
Yeah.
And he's memorized the list, so he's as valid. So get him across, he can.
Yeah. But in order to get across, Percival has to beat up some cops with some martial arts moves.
Yeah.
And then he drives a flaming van into a wall and then escapes into the sewers. This is how he gets back and forth every night.
Classic. Drives a flaming van into the wall every night. I think it might have. In this case, it might have been because he was the rave was raided.
Okay, whatever. He's very casual about all this stuff. It's easy, like he does it every night.
This is some cool John Wick stuff.
Yeah.
Fine. I'm fine with it.
Yep. Okay, so Lorraine arrives in Berlin. She's picked up by some people who claim they've been sent by Percival. And
he's late, we know. We know he's late because we get a scene of him in bed with two naked women where he wakes up and says, oh shit, I'm late.
Yes. And he gets around, he walks around, he's super jacked, He doesn't like Professor X or Percival from the comic at all. We have a shortcoming situation here where the actor is the opposite of physically what he's supposed to be.
Absolutely. Well, he's completely different characters.
Yeah.
How is this guy the head of a branch? A serious spy branch?
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, when we get to Delphine, I mean... she's a totally naive. She starts crying about the stress of being a spy. She says, "I'm looking here for one." Like you're telling me that French intelligence couldn't send a more experienced agent to Berlin as the wall's about to fall down?
Yeah.
This is the best they could send. This 19-year-old girl who breaks down in tears.
Yeah.
So stupid.
Yeah.
So utterly stupid. Okay, so she's picked up by these guys. The driver gives her a card for a bar, which was what
Go to this
Percival did in the comic. But then immediately they start beating her up.
Yeah.
They're trying to kill her. They pull a gun on her. Why did you give her this
She
card?
recognizes them, right? She recognizes.
I guess
She does. She recognizes the guy sitting next to her.
Okay.
She knows him somehow.
Okay. Yeah.
I got questions.
Yeah.
We've covered the comic. We know already that Lorraine is Satchel. Yeah. Why are these Soviets attacking her?
They don't know she's... Nobody knows she's Stachel. Even her own... Probably one or two people way up there know that she's Satchel. You know what I mean? Like, the highest... At the highest...
Bremovich knows she is.
Oh, that's right. Bremovich does know. So why did Bremovich send these two people?
Exactly. There's no reason. This is a problem.
You know what? It's worse. Here's the spoiler from the movie. It turns out she's a triple agent. She's actually working for the CIA, which makes it even worse. By the way, I'm going to ring that bell because this is like Denis Villeneuve saying that the Bene Gesserit were the ones that actually wanted Paul Atreides dead. It's like adding a tag. Let's add an extra twist. Ring the bell, please. It's we're adding an extra twist, man. Which actually adds plot holes.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about Dune Part 2. I'm still upset about it.
Yeah. Okay. So so she has to fight this. Why did he give her the card for that bar?
Everything about this scene makes no sense. They shouldn't be attacking her. Why would he give her a card if he was going to attack her? She ends up meeting Bremovich in the bar. He was sending her to meet with his boss in the bar right before he tried to kill her.
Yeah. Then he shows up at the bar. Oh, and this is after. So, by the way, Bremovich shows up. They've taken prisoner all these kids that were at the rave, and he beats this kid up with one of his own skateboards and like a ghetto blaster.
Well, 99 Luftballons is playing, which is
okay. There's actually a very similar scene in Hobbs and Shaw. But
does that come out before or after? So I think it's after, right?
After. Okay. But I was like, okay, why? So he's in there. He's like, our guy escaped last night at this rave. And I think he's talking about Spyglass, not about Percival. But he never mentions Lorraine at all. He has no care that she's beat up two of her guys in this car. No mention.
Well, he doesn't have a problem with it because he knows that she's on their side.
Okay, and then he shows up at the bar. Why did he have to introduce himself at the bar if he knows who she is?
What's the point? Yeah. Well,
just don't go to the bar.
It's the same in the comic. There's no reason for it to happen.
Meanwhile... The scene plays out like in the bar, and Percival's in the bar watching, and Percival knows Bremovich as well. Why is
fucking Percival there? He's bugged. Anyway, so then Delphine shows up.
Yeah.
Again, as I said, played by Sofia Boutella.
Yeah.
Incredibly beautiful.
Again, the camera
lingers all over
her body. There are scenes where we don't need to see her in her lingerie, but it's like, look at her behind.
She's just doing business in her Yeah. She dies in her lingerie. Her character.
Yeah.
I want to come back to that.
Yeah. So, Lorraine goes to the corner, plays out a little bit like in the comics. She gets the passport number wrong, but unlike the comic, Percival is really like impressed. Ooh, you faked the number so you can spend more time here. Unlike the comic, where he's very angry that she has extended her time.
I still think that who knows if that's even true or not in the comic. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that anymore. I want to just jump back a little bit. There's a great moment that reminds me of the hilarious scene from Akira. We have the handlers at the MI6 in London say, this is David Percival. He's been in Berlin for a while. We suspect he's gone a bit feral. They show a photo of him. He's looking very fresh-faced and clean in a suit and tie. And then we immediately cut to David Percival in Berlin, who's gone totally punk.
Yes.
He's got a shaved head.
Yeah.
He's wearing this enormous fur coat.
Yeah. Shaved head apparently to look like... So he looks like Sinead is what Charlize says.
Yeah.
John Goodman, a CIA agent, has to turn to Toby Jones and say, Irish singer.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't Toby Jones be the one who knows who Sinead is in 1989?
Ridiculous.
And not this old man from the CIA?
It should have been the other way around.
Yeah,
Toby Jones's
exactly.
character should have been, because we need to establish that the CIA guy is competent. Because because at the end of the film we find out he's behind everything.
Yeah.
He's Lorraine's handler.
Yeah.
So, different from the comic, here the CIA, John Goodman's CIA character is sitting in from the start in the interview.
Yes.
In this, everyone's smoking.
Yeah.
Lorraine is very disrespectful.
Yep.
She's sort of like reclining in the chair.
Mm-hmm.
She's smoking constantly. She's given a lot of back talk. It's not really the way you talk to your boss, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She's really cool. Mm-hmm. We've established she's super cool. And John Goodman's there. She wants him to leave.
Mm-hmm.
He won't. He doesn't go. Yeah. John Goodman, of course, has appeared on comic book movie Oblivion before. Speed Racer.
Yes.
Where he plays the dad.
Yeah.
And he's back. And he's lost a bit of weight.
Yeah.
Not a lot. He's still husky, but he's definitely lost weight.
Yeah.
And he's grown quite a big hobo beard.
Yes.
Incidentally, Charlize Theron's British accent is not great.
Yes, this was a big question for me because this is supposed to be not. At the end, it's revealed that she's American.
Yeah.
So did she have a deliberately bad accent, which doesn't make sense? Why would she be a British agent if the British were like, "Hey, your accent's weird.
There's
You're
a problem
suspicious."
here. You don't sound British.
Yeah. We're not going to hire you because you're suspicious. Very weird.
How does an American end up pretending to be a... How could that happen?
The whole movie, I was
Double
like...
agents are usually... How it usually happens is when there was an ideological reason, like it's either for money, they need money,
Yeah.
they're approached by someone from the other side, and they sell secrets for money. That's how it usually is. It's usually just ugly, boring people exchanging money. Or when there was an ideological reason, they get exposed to Marxism or something in university or something and become ideologically attracted to Marxism.
Mm-hmm.
And neither of those is possible for Charlize Theron's character. She's grown up in America. At some point, she's ended up... How could you pass a background check?
Yeah, how could you pass a background check? Yeah.
It's absurd.
Let me ask...
And as you said, it's just there to make her a goodie.
Yeah.
You tell this...
Let me add another tab onto this. She reveals at the end, when we learned that she's a triple agent, she's not actually, as in the comic, she's a Russian agent.
Starship,
Here, she's pretending to be a Russian agent, she's actually a CIA agent.
Because the Russians are evil.
Yes. And she has to be, our main character has to be a good character.
She has to be heroic.
But here's my point. She reveals, I've been giving you false intel, and I've been selling your intel back
Everything
to
you gave me was a bullet in my gun. Everything I gave you was a chink in the iron curtain.
Chink in the iron curtain. Okay, if that's the case, why do the British care that some secret agent named Satchel has been giving false info to the Russians that is helping them? Why are they like, oh my god, we gotta shut down this British agent?
I guess because the
that's
Yanks...
hurting the Russians.
I guess because the Yanks have been screwing both the British and the...
In what way? We've got chinks in the iron curtain. We've got holes in the iron curtain.
That's a good point.
What is
America...
what damage is Satchel doing to England?
But it's just like America, fuck yeah, America on top. They're tricking both the British. This is a...
Yeah, but the British don't know that she's American. As far as the British know...
She's a traitor.
So she's a traitor who's giving bad information to Russia. Russia is hurting because of the information they're getting from this double agent. What does that up?
The US has not seen fit to tell their ally, their closest ally, that someone that they have someone in MI6 is working with and for them.
Yeah, but they don't know the Americans are involved at that stage. They think
this is what I mean. Yeah. Why would the Americans not tell the British?
Right.
Why wouldn't you say, oh, Starshell, don't worry, Starshell works for us.
Yeah.
Just don't try and find her.
Right.
Just keep a lid on it. We're allies. We can cooperate here. No. America has to be the smartest in the room. So this came out in 2017, I guess, when a domestic and international audience could believe that America was still competent and on top of things.
Yeah.
And not a bunch of lunatics that elect retards.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I need just to rewind one scene. Sorry. I need to rewind to the beginning for a moment.
Yeah, please.
When she gets out of the ice bath, 10 days later, she goes over to her dresser.
She burns a photo of herself in Gascoigne.
Herself in Gascoigne.
Why?
And later, she has a dream where Gascoigne is saying they're on to Satchel.
Yeah, that's right.
She has an intimate dream where first-person dream where she's touching his face. This does not...
Doesn't pay off?
It doesn't add up with anything else that happens in the movie.
No.
Worse than anything in the comics.
Why is she sleeping with Gascoigne?
And she burns that photo. We've seen Gascoigne get killed. we see her burn the photo. She goes into the meeting. They say, "Do you know Gascoigne?" She says, "Only enough to say hello to." We know that's false already because she burned the photo.
And then later on we get so she's had a physical relationship with him.
Yes, but what was that?
Yeah. It serves no purpose.
Yeah.
It would be a better fit for the comic where she probably killed Gascoigne to protect her identity as Satchel.
Yeah.
But here in the film it makes no sense because she's coded as heroic.
Yeah. Don't know.
Doesn't make sense.
Okay, so we had the scene with the coroner. She goes back to her hotel room, which is all done a bit neon.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. Is this supposed to be like a love hotel or something that she's staying in cheap?
No. Every set is glamorous.
Right.
Either chic or grimy glamorous, like graffiti.
Yeah.
Cool glamorous.
Again, so unlike the comic.
Yeah.
In every way. The neon all over this room is like, it's like the Catwoman room in Batman Returns.
Is this really where you would stay if you were a spy?
Trying to lay low? Yeah. And absolutely not.
And don't even get me started on, I think, the next scene where she goes and meets a character known only as the Watchmaker.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But so first I want to say that Percival shows up in a room, she beats him up because he's arrived on it. But he says, "I've never met Spyglass," so we already know he's a liar. Unlike the comic where you're not really sure if this guy's just an old dinosaur or what, if he's really a bad guy, here it's very clear.
Yeah.
This guy lies about everything.
Yes. He's,
Right. So now she wants to get over to the other side. She wants to cross the wall. For some reason, she wants a new contact on that side. I couldn't figure out why
because she wants to shake the list. She wants to shake out the list.
Yeah, okay.
She goes to see the Watchmaker first. Alright, so I mentioned the Watchmaker.
Yes.
Did you notice who played the Watchmaker?
Absolutely, because I was delighted. Surely we mentioned this in the Most Desired Man episode.
I did mention it.
You did mention it.
I did mention that it was coming.
Because I was so delighted.
Der bewechte man himself.
Yes.
The man in the middle is back.
Yes.
Til Schweiger.
I was much like when Gary Daniels showed up in City Hunter, or when Pamela Anderson showed up in Nicky Larson.
Yeah.
Hey, you're in a country you're not even supposed to be in, and you're in a comic book movie.
Just so happy. Well, Til Schweiger belongs in Berlin. I was just so happy. I'm doing that Leo thing from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So thrilled to see my guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although I have a problem with where he is. Okay, so this you can see.
This is a new character that's not in the comic.
Correct.
Yes.
And also he's we talked a bit about this when we did our episode on the killer. This is very John Wick. Brotherhood of Assassins.
Yep.
Secret messages, like artifacts and codes.
Yep.
Here, the Watchmaker is at the center of an intelligence network, it seems. Who's he working
both sides.
for? Yeah, both sides, right.
He works
both
for
East and West, and for Americans, because we see at the very end, he
drives her to the airport.
I wish had not been in it.
Yeah.
He drives her to the airport where she gets on her private CIA jet. Is this the way you move spies around? In private jets with a big CIA logo?
No, but did you notice
inside the plane? Or do you just send them in economy so that they don't draw attention to themselves?
Exactly.
Til Schweiger's character, the Watchmaker, he should have been in some grimy room in the dodgiest part of Berlin, surrounded by bits of watches.
Yes.
In completely nondescript and
inconspicuous. This whole movie is the opposite of authentic spycraft.
Yes.
Right?
Well.
In every way.
Or from... Well, you got these different versions. You've got the Le Carré version, and you've got the James Bond version.
Exactly.
Or we're going even further than James Bond.
We've got the James Bond Wick version.
We're getting... Well put. James Bond Wick. This is very John Wick. Secret Brotherhoods. It's the gold coins or something in John Wick.
That's right.
Here we've got watches.
Yes.
Watches.
Anybody can walk in from either side and say, and I don't know what information he's put in this watch for her. Yeah. I guess it's where to meet her contact.
Yes, that is what it is.
So he's the one that finds a contact for her?
Yeah. Why would
She's like, I want a contact on the east side. Can you give me somebody?
How does she know who he is?
Exactly.
Why would he... He doesn't even look at her when she comes in the room.
That's right.
She says, "I need to get in contact with someone with an intelligence desk work on the east in the East Berlin." He doesn't even look up at her.
No.
No. You just give that information to anyone that walks. No. Also, the shop that he's in, I mentioned this. He should have been in something like like at South Melbourne Market or something like that. It should be.
Yeah.
It should be the grimy. It should be bits of. Instead, it's impossibly glamorous. It looks like the ritziest jewelry store you've ever walked into. He doesn't even display the watches. Well, there's a handful of watches on display under glass, It's fabulous. It's straight out of John Wick.
Yeah.
Sexy spies and assassins lounging in impossibly fabulous surroundings.
Yes.
It couldn't be more distant from at what you'd called authentic spycraft, which is generally boring, busy people.
Exactly.
Paying money to find out
something you wouldn't watch a movie about.
What Ronald Reagan had for breakfast last week.
Exactly. I wanted to mention that Til Schweiger is listed about 4th in the opening credits. His name is he's only in 3 scenes in this, and I think he drove her to the airport so we could see his handsome face
one more time.
At least once, because you don't get to see it very close those first 2 scenes.
No.
We need a good look at this handsome man before the movie's over, and I think that's why he drives her.
He's still really handsome.
He absolutely looks amazing. Okay, so then she orders the watch from him. She decides she's going to go search Gascoigne's apartment, which has already been turned over by all these teams. But when she gets there, the only person that knows she's going there is Percival, our James McAvoy character.
Yep.
When she gets there, a bunch of cops show up. So she has to martial arts the cops. Amazing sequence.
Yep.
All the martial arts sequences are really amazing.
It's great because another thing that's fantastic about these scenes is Charlize Theron is ripped.
Oh, yeah.
And skilled.
Yes.
She used to spar with... This film was being made at the same time as John Wick 2.
Okay.
Apparently she and Keanu Reeves would spar.
Right.
Because they were both preparing for their roles at the same time. I believe it.
Yeah.
However, the film doesn't expect us to believe that she is a match for 5 big cops.
Yeah.
She uses trickery, talent, and skill.
Yeah.
She will... grab items around the room.
She makes a rope out of something.
A hose. It's a hose.
And she keeps one guy at bay with the hose while she's beating up the other guys. And she's flipping around. The choreography is really amazing.
It's fantastic. And I wasn't taken out of it by watching it wasn't like a 100-pound woman. She's not 100 pounds. She's more than that. But, it's not, I don't have to...
No, it's feasible.
It's completely feasible.
You buy it. You absolutely buy it.
She's way smarter than them.
Yes.
She uses everything around her. She distracts them. She's so much more than a match for them.
At the end of the fight, she flips out of the window holding the hose and then goes down to the floor before, which I've seen in another movie, which I can't remember.
That's not good. And in fact, we get a Wilhelm scream. Did you notice?
I did notice that, but then she jumps down to the street and some more cops show up, and for some reason she decides to mask her face, which she did not do when she's beating up the cops in the apartment.
No reason.
So these 2 cops, she needs to hide her face, and then as soon as she beats them up, she pulls her mask down again.
Why was that?
Wouldn't other people see what...
I guess because it's rad.
Yes. Okay, then she meets Delphine. It plays with similarly. Delphine says meet me at this nightclub, and she doesn't own a restaurant.
No.
Because she's 16 years old or some shit.
Delphine tries to seduce her, I think.
Not at this stage. So first she crosses over to the east side.
Oh yeah. She meets Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah, but first she's being followed by Dermovich's man. What's his name again? Bermovich himself and his thugs show up. They look like the lead singer of Rammstein and Zangief from Street Fighter 2. Yeah. And they have a huge fight in the cinema, which is showing Tarkovsky's Stalker.
Yeah, this is 10 years after Stalker came out, and yet it says,
and there's a lot of people in the cinema.
Yeah.
A lot of people. I can't imagine that many people going to see Stalker now.
Well, I mean, it was a success, Stalker, when it came out in the Soviet Union in the late 70s.
Okay.
It would have been shown in East Germany contemporaneously. And yet it says, I could understand if it was a 10-year retrospective of Stalker. Yes. There probably was a 10-year retrospective.
It's in a huge cinema house, and there's a lot of people in there.
Well, you can't show Western movies in...
No, of course. But my question is, has David Leitch ever seen Stalker? He doesn't seem like the guy who's ever... His filmmaking style is the opposite of Tarkovsky.
It couldn't be more different. Well, I don't know.
Was he making fun of Stalker? Does he say, look at this dumbass movie where nothing's happening on screen? Look at my movie, which is so much better? I don't understand why it's in
I think it's pretty simple. Stalker is the most favourite film to come out of the Soviet Union.
Okay.
So that's the film that's going to be showing.
So he Googled, what's the best Soviet movie? Stalker came up, he's like, let's put that in
Andrew Johnston Googled spy terminology for his comic. Leitch is Googling what What is most famous Soviet movie? Stalker. Okay, the world premiere of Stalker will be in East Berlin in 1989 because it says premiere.
Yeah.
Like it could have 10-year. It's perfect timing for a 10-year retrospective of Stalker in 1989, but instead it says premiere because he's a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
It's really, as you say, this film it's kind of like the opposite of Stalker, except in the sense that we get a really long take in the.
Yes, that's true. That is
true. In that sense, it's just like Stalker. Stalker, famously, there's only about 130 shots in the whole movie.
Let's open a new tab on Eisenstein, who believed that all meaning in cinema came from editing, and then Tarkovsky was kind of the opposite of that, right? He's like,
but there's no editing.
Few cuts. Or who made Russian Ark? That's like all one shot. The whole movie, it's like 90 minutes or 2 hours, just one. It's like the opposite of Eisenstein.
The average shot length of a shot in Stalker is, I think, a minute.
Right. Okay, so she finally, after shaking off these thugs by beating them up in another amazing sequence.
It's great. Again, she stabs her keys into one of their faces.
Yeah. She meets her contact, who is, as we mentioned before, Bill Skarsgård. Do you want to go into Bill Skarsgård a little bit?
Well, he's not too much, but he appeared in the Crow movie this year.
He's in the Crow. He's in Deadpool 2 as well. And also, his dad.
Yeah, well, he's MCU. He's an important guy in the MCU, right?
Yes, but you got to ring the bell.
Oh, he's Baron Harkonnen.
He's Baron Harkonnen. We got to mention the two dads, Freddie Jones and Stellan Skarsgård.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
Okay, so... Right, so where do I got here? Okay, so now we get the scene at the club with Delphine. She meets Delphine at the club. Delphine says, "Let's go make out in a
quiet
toilet,
space." I guess it's the toilet.
And that's where, a bit like the comic, she pulls the gun off of Delphine and is like, "You're a spy." It's
not under her pillow; it's tucked in her waistband.
Yeah,
but otherwise it plays.
Delphine starts to cry. "It's hard to be a spy. I'm so scared. Berlin is scary." She starts to cry,
and they make out. They go back to I assume Delphine's flat, where we have a very male gazy sex scene.
Yeah.
Where these two extremely attractive women are completely naked.
Yeah.
And it's really quite raunchy.
Yeah.
I want to be okay with it, but it I don't know. I'll talk.
I could only think of Bound by the Wachowski sisters, where they actually brought in an intimacy coordinator.
I'm sure there was.
Who was actually like a lesbian. It was like, here's how we do it. And actually made it like the realistic sex scenes in that movie.
Does it feel similar to... I haven't seen Bound.
No, and this felt like... I don't think they had an intimacy coordinator on set for this. I'm not sure.
I would hope they did, but I will say... I don't want to talk about this too much, because I don't want to sound like a perverse middle-aged man. But they... Sometimes when they're making love, like someone straddles some... Like they straddle one another.
Yeah.
It feels very heterosexual.
Yeah, don't know.
There isn't it... like... It feels like shot for aesthetics rather than for realism.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, that's this whole movie, shot for aesthetics rather than for realism.
Exactly.
Why would the sex scene be any different?
So I don't know. Okay, so now we get a scene where David Percival kills Bakhtin to get the watch off of him, because Bakhtin has the watch with the list in it.
I hope I might have finally spotted something that you didn't, because did you recognise the actor that played Bakhtin?
No.
It is Jóhannes Jóhannesson.
Okay.
Who played... We have to go way back here. This is a deep cut. He plays a character called Nick Barris, who was in Bloodshot.
Whoa!
He was Bloodshot's second victim.
Whoa!
The first one after he was reprogrammed to seek a second victim.
That's awesome, man. Awesome catch. Well done. So Percival just straight up kills Bakhtin on screen. So there's no doubt about...
With a nice pick in the head, Trotsky style.
There's no question. Who killed... No. He lied about knowing Spyglass, and now he straight up kills Bakhtin on screen. We know this is a bad guy.
Bakhtin has the list in the watch.
Yeah.
Why has Bakhtin come here to confront Percival?
I don't know. Is he trying to sell him the... Because he goes to the watchmaker and he says, I have some... I don't know.
I think
was that later?
I forget. Percival... No, that was before this, right before. To establish that he has... He goes to the watchmaker, he says, I've got some merchandise. And then, in contrast to what Watchmaker did when Charlize Theron's character showed up, he actually gets up and walks up to him and says, could I inspect the merchandise? Do you mind? And Johannes says, I very much mind. You just tell him that I'm ready to sell, and then he leaves.
Yeah.
And then he has his confrontation with Percival. I don't know, he accuses him maybe of following him or something, or I don't remember.
I don't remember.
He has Percival at a disadvantage. He has a gun drawn on him.
Yeah.
And then he gets closer and closer and closer to Percival. This seems like bad spycraft because Percival lunges around with an ice pick and buries it in his forehead, killing him instantly.
Also, isn't it a bad thing to kill Bakhtin just and leave the body on the street instead of in the sewer?
No one's ever held accountable for any of the murders they perform.
Nope. Absolutely
Do the cops
not.
just do nothing? Well, if a spy kills someone, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
They just move on with their lives.
So, at this stage, Emmett, the CIA agent, shows up in Berlin to give a speech to Charlize, which is a bit weird because in the opening scenes of the movie, when he showed up at that meeting at the debrief, she was like, I don't want him here. He says, I was in Berlin, I should be here too. As if neither she nor Toby Jones knows that he was there.
Yeah, but then it turns out they sent him to give her what like a little bit more direction.
Pep talk, or I don't know what information he actually
he gives her a newspaper with a number in it, and then she calls the number, and the number says Satchel has been compromised or something like that.
Right.
Again, a thing that never pays off.
Right.
What does that mean? Satchel has been compromised. Who's compromised Satchel?
That means that. Oh, I know why. Because David has the list after killing Bakhtin. Percival has the list, and he goes through the list, and he's like,
he knows.
Aha. And then he calls the office. He's like, hey, I'm very close to Satchel.
But, okay, yeah, you're right. Okay, so David has... So
then somebody at the office...
So the Soviets... It doesn't matter that Bakhtin knew Satchel, and it didn't matter that Spyglass knew Satchel, because they're on the other side of the wall.
Okay.
Where they already know that Satchel's a double agent. It's MI6 that can't be allowed to find out. And David works for MI6, so now he has the list. Okay, I have questions. What's this number she's called?
So...
Who is this?
This is... Well, it's John Goodman. John Goodman gave her the newspaper.
Yeah.
He's her true handler, right?
Yeah.
He knows she's Satchel.
Yeah.
He gives her a newspaper. She phones the number. It says Satchel has been compromised. So that's somebody on the CIA.
So the number is the CIA.
CIA.
But John Goodman is CIA. Why didn't he just say Satchel's been compromised?
He can't tell her that in public. Up on that bridge where anybody could see them.
They were in the middle of nowhere.
They were,
looking at the dead zone.
Yeah.
You know what, though? It's probably a good thing that he didn't, because she was bugged.
Yes, that's right.
How did John Goodman knew she was bugged? Or is he just really cautious? If he's really cautious, he's the only person in this film that's cautious. Yeah. He's the only professional in this entire movie.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Okay, so now we have to extract Spyglass, because he made the deal at the beginning of the movie that since he turned over the list to Gascoigne, the deal was he's supposed to be extracted. Or to defect.
For some reason, I guess because Lorraine's been charged to retrieve the list, she finds out that Spyglass has the list memorized. When did she find that out? Did she find it out from Bill Skarsgård, maybe? So she decides that she's going to be in charge of the operation to extract him. Yeah. But David Percival, he sabotages it.
Right.
Because I think here in the movie it makes a little more sense. He wants to be the only person to have a copy of the list because he intends to profit from it.
Yes. Well, what happens is they go over to the other side. Bill Skarsgård, whose name is Merkel,
same as he is in the comic.
He's made fake passports and stuff for Spyglass.
Yeah.
And Spyglass's family.
Yeah.
And as they go out into the street, suddenly all the protesters, they mix with the protesters, as in the comic, they suddenly all put up black umbrellas.
Why would they do that?
Well, Charlize says she had a plan. It was part of her plan.
Yeah.
How did she arrange it?
Yeah.
How did she tell all these people?
Well, I think I think all of those people are I think they're all Merkel's
They're
people.
all Merkel's crew?
Yeah.
Really?
I think so, yeah.
Because he whistles and then
we
they
see
all
him handing out the umbrellas at the start of their introductory
that's
scene.
true.
Anyway, it hardly matters. What the real question
it plays
is,
like the final
why
scene of V
does-
for Vendetta where they're all wearing V masks.
Yeah, because V mailed them out to everybody in England. How did he do that? Anyway, that's another matter. Here, it's the perfect counter to the snipers that the Soviet snipers that Percival has positioned in the street at this exact part of the street. So the street is long.
Yeah.
These snipers could have been anywhere, but they only put up the umbrellas right when they need to.
Yeah.
And it's revealed that this is Charlize Theron's plan. How could she possibly have known?
Yep. Doesn't make sense.
Nope. It's just a big surprise for them. And then it's so that we can see David shoot.
Yeah, when we see David
Spyglass
shoot
himself.
Spyglass on screen,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about this guy.
No.
He straight up murders people. Now, she runs up to get the Spyglass of Machabi. He's not dead, unlike the comic. He's still alive, but she's like...
He lives a long time.
He lives
Now
a
we
long
get-
time. In fact, he lives for 10 minutes and 30 seconds because she... Here we get almost continuous shot. She runs him into a building where she's going to go up and chase the
It is continuous.
Now,
It's
wait
not
a
till
second,
they're in the car that...
No, because there is a scene where when she goes up the stairwell, it goes almost black. So there may be a cut in there.
There will be a hidden cut. Of course there were hidden cuts. There were hidden cuts in the extraction scene that we... Remember, there's a similar scene in the middle of the
Yes.
extraction movie where they're
Yeah.
fighting in the
Yeah.
slum in
Yeah.
Dark Tower, wherever it is.
Now we have this...
There are hidden cuts.
Yeah. So well, I couldn't see any cuts where she's... There's no moments in this fight where nobody's on screen, I don't think.
Yeah.
It's crazy. She's getting thrown around. She throw her down the stairs at one stage.
People have
she's
really...
getting hurt.
She's getting... Beauty... You know, like the saying, beauty is never tarnished. Beauty is tarnished.
Yeah.
She's a mess. She's
Yeah.
bleeding everywhere.
Yeah.
It's great. It's one of the best action sequences I think I've seen ever.
Yeah.
I was mesmerized.
Yeah.
It's like the scene in Extraction. It's like the scene from that Daredevil episode where they're fighting in the corridor.
That one's got secret cuts in it.
Yes. Yeah, of course. They must do. How could
Well,
they
you
not?
know what? The Old Boy is the one, when we get to it, that's got a crazy one cut.
It looks
sequence
so
in
good.
it.
And like the staggering, you know, like they'll beat one another up and then they'll collapse.
Yeah.
Take 30 seconds to get their breath and they sort of sway to their feet.
Yeah.
They're utterly physically exhausted. They have nothing left.
Yeah.
She stabs a guy in the neck with a corkscrew.
Yeah. Yeah. They're
she's-
crashing into stuff, breaking stuff.
Again, she just does not. They beat the hell out of her, but she just does not give up. She just keeps getting back up.
Yes.
And she never suffers sort of like a fatal injury the way they do, because she's always cleverer than they are.
Yeah.
She always finds a way to use something in the environment. They'll pick up a lamp stand, she'll pick up a hot plate. Smack him in the
Yeah.
face with it.
Yeah.
She's always just a little bit ahead.
Yeah.
Spyglass saves her at one point by smashing one guy in the head with I think a whiskey bottle.
Yeah.
Or a vodka bottle.
Yeah.
He's really struggling though because he's been shot in the belly and he's bleeding out.
Yes. So this sequence goes for 8 minutes, and then they jump into a car.
Yeah.
And now the sequence continues for another 2 minutes. But this sequence seems like it's got to have some fakery because the camera's going forward and backwards from the front of the car to the back of the car and turning around in a way that no human cameraman could do.
I don't know how they did it. Unlike when we did Extraction, I couldn't find any videos on YouTube
I think
about
they
how this was
CG'd
shot.
some of this
Possible, but
stuff.
it still looks so good. I mean, and then finally we get a cut when there's a car accident.
Yeah.
We see a car kind of flip,
Yeah.
catch on fire.
Yeah, and they crash into the water and Spyglass dies anyway. So much like in the comic, in the comic a thing happens, and here it takes 10 minutes for that thing to happen. In the movie, every time this guy just dies
Because we get a
in
kick-ass action scene.
couple panels. In the
Scenes.
movie, it's like, here's 6 minutes. She has to fight these guys off or whatever. Okay, so he dies. Unfortunately, she goes back to her apartment. Interesting thing, we get, much like in the comic, we get a lot of news reports, but in the comic they're all in German, so you don't know what they're saying. Here, they're all in English, which is equally stupid. Like, why is the German news in English? I don't understand. Okay.
I didn't bother to check whether there was an English language broadcast in Germany.
Yeah,
In Berlin, anyway.
David Percival at some stage we see him meeting on the street with Bremovich.
Yep.
And making a deal for the list. He's like, we both need this. We need to maintain the balance. Something like that. Delphine calls David. I'm not sure why. But a masked man shows up at Delphine's apartment, garrots her, and then she pulls off the mask, and it's David. So yet again, unlike the comic, it's like, nope, here's your guy. This guy's committed 3 murders in full view.
Yeah. He's the villain,
Yeah.
isn't he, of the piece?
Yeah. Then he
There's a little more to this, isn't there? I mean, how does it happen? She's taken photos of him.
She has photos of him meeting Bremovich.
Why does she call David to threaten him? It seems like a bad idea.
Seems like in the comic, her calling Lorraine.
Yeah, to tell her.
Hey, I got something to show you.
Yeah, terrible idea. Because it.
Why'd you call this person?
Delphine likes to do her spycraft in her underwear.
Yes.
She's wearing sort of like a one-piece lingerie.
Yeah, like a teddy.
Yeah, it's like and then of course David shows up.
Yep, David
pointlessly
shows up.
In a mask.
Long fight with her in her underwear. He finally strangles her to death.
Yeah.
Then he burns down his office, and we get a voiceover speech about
from him
spies and being a spy and the world, blah blah blah.
Yeah, it's boring. It's sort of his motivation. He wants out. Or does he want out? I don't know. He sort of decided
he wants it to go on forever, I think.
He's decided that being a spy isn't really about being faithful. It's the thrill of living in a kind of
I'm not sure,
underworld.
But Lorraine shows up
she's
the second
sabotaged. Well, it's right after he's killed.
Yeah.
It's right after he's killed Delphine.
Yeah, in fact, she's
Lorraine
ringing the
right
doorbell trying to get in.
Much like she was in the comic. She goes up, she finds Delphine dead, but she's
stabbed his tires.
She stabbed his tires.
So they're out
he
there.
Can't get away. Then she shoots him.
She shoots him, but the last thing he says is, "I fucking love Berlin." He shouts it.
Yep.
So there's some, I don't know, that's what's going on in his head. I guess he wants the Cold War to go on forever. That was my takeaway, but that might have been colored by reading the comic.
I don't think that was it. That's fine. I think it was more just. Are those his last words? I fucking love Berlin. I think his last words was something else.
No, it was his last words.
Okay, because he tells. Oh. I don't think they were his last words. Actually,
no, because then she's trying to get info out of him. She wants a list. She says.
He says it's on its way to.
She calls him your comrade Satchel. He says, so that's how you're going to play it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the giveaway.
Yes.
A little bit of a clue.
So if you're dumb, you think David is Comrade Satchel at this point, but actually,
he said the line. Yeah.
Perfectly clear that she says they quote.
From Machiavelli.
It is a double pleasure to deceive the deceiver.
Yeah.
I guess Leitch has Googled Machiavelli quotes and
it would have been Johnstad, I guess.
Oh yeah, Johnstad, and he was going to sell the list.
Yes.
And make money.
Yes, but he had also told MI6 about it. He called them up.
No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he did.
He did.
Why would he do that?
Well, why would he do that? Lots of whys.
Anyway, yes. So she says. Also, in the earlier scene, Spyglass says to Lorraine, I've memorized the list, and there's a lot, and he sort of implies that he knows about Lorraine.
Okay.
As well. He says, I've read the list, and I know everything.
Yes, right.
Kind of goes.
Right.
And I'm not saying anything, I'm on your side, because he's trusting her to get... Right, so she shoots David in the head, she takes the watch with the information in it, and then she goes back to London. We're in the present.
Yeah.
She tells them that she doesn't know where the list is.
Yeah.
They say, well, this has been a massive fuck-up, we're going to bury this, and you're going to go on leave.
Yeah.
Then that's pretty much... Then we have cut to 3 days later.
Yeah. In Paris.
In Paris.
She meets Bremovich in Paris.
Bremovich.
And Merkel is there, too.
He shouldn't be there. He's German.
He's disguised as a bellhop at this hotel.
He's there. I mean, someone needed to hide the gun in the ice bucket.
Yeah.
And it was him. I actually rewound to check. It's like, how did that gun get in that ice bucket? We don't see the face of the bellhop. And I'm like, that bellhop is going to be Bill Skarsgård. And sure enough, it was. But if you were going into Paris and you needed someone to get your back, would you bring... Your East German
contact,
your East German peddler, spiv, forger, as your backup? No, but he's a character we're going to recognise, so that's why he's there.
Exactly.
She's dressed in a kind of like a sexy red dress. She's wearing a brown wig. She's very flirty with Bremovich. It's implied she's probably going to sleep with him.
That they have been sleeping together, I think, is the implication that they've been intimate, because he touches her face in a way that's kind of like...
Very intimate.
Yeah.
But he doesn't trust her, and he won't drink vodka until she drinks from the same bottle.
Yeah.
Maybe he should have checked the ice bucket. Then he signals, and his mates, many of whom have been on the receiving end of a beating from Lorraine throughout the course of the film, they come out of 3 different doors. They all advance in. Bremovich says, Percival told me about you.
Yeah.
He told me everything.
Yeah.
So what, there's another reveal? Well, we know what the reveal is, that she's CIA. It's like, there's another reveal. You've just revealed that she's Satchel, and now we're getting an extra reveal.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
They say, can you please be professional and stand on the plastic mat when we kill you? She gets the gun out of the ice bucket. Again, Charlize Theron is more than a match for these people. She shoots them all, takes them all out. She kills Bremovich, and then she gives that line that we mentioned earlier. Every secret you gave me was a bullet in my gun. Every secret I gave you was a crack in the Berlin Wall or in the Iron Curtain.
Honestly, at this point, this fight, I was a bit tired.
Same. I think this is too long.
I was like, we don't need another martial arts sequence at this stage.
Not only do we not... I'm getting this... At this point, ending fatigue.
Yes.
The film should have ended already.
Yes. Yes.
It's too long now. She kills him. She leaves. Til Schweiger drives her to her private jet.
Yeah.
Her private CIA jet.
Yeah.
She gets on board. There's John Goodman.
Yeah.
He says, good job. Let's go home.
Yeah.
And then he says...
she's going home for good, I guess?
Yeah, because she's finished.
Yeah, I guess because
the
been
Berlin Wall fell?
exposed because of the list, or I don't know.
No, but John Goodman has the list. He's holding the watch.
Oh, that's right.
So why is she going home? There's no reason why she would be. Why not keep her in...
Yeah.
The Soviet Union still doesn't fall for a few, for another year or more. Why not keep her in... No, it doesn't matter, because this is the happy ending.
Yes.
America triumphant.
Yes. And your main actor is a good guy, not a bad guy.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
The film should have ended like arguably film should have ended like the comic, with her just
I agree.
being
I 100% agree.
being Satchel.
Yeah. It was a real sellout ending.
But we can't have that.
Yeah.
Because the Russians are bad.
Yeah. Okay, got any trivia for us?
Sure thing. Okay, so this film cost $30 million to make, which is fairly cheap for a film like this.
Yeah.
Made $100 million.
Okay. It was a big... I remember everybody was talking about it at the time. Yeah.
So a definite success.
Yep.
Charlize Theron was one of the producers, and she was kind of like the main impetus behind getting the film made.
Okay.
Her production company read a treatment on the then unpublished comic in 2010.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
So another parallel with Ciudad and Extraction, or perhaps with...
Maybe Oni Press was handing these summaries out to people. Here's this comic we're going to have come out a couple of years or something.
Well, they were shopping it around before it was even written. So you got to wonder how...
That is interesting, but it would also explain why they're so different. Because they were developing in two different paths completely.
Yes.
Simultaneously. Possibly.
Yeah, so in that... Like Ciudad then, except with different people working on it. So her production company hired Kurt Johnstad and David Leitch to work on the film. And Johnstad wrote the script treatment, obviously, so it couldn't be... It's funny how it's... Yeah, anyway, we'll talk about that. So in 2015 it was announced that it was in development as the Coldest City at that point, so it still had the name The Coldest City.
Okay.
In the same article that I read announcing its development, they also announced Denis Villeneuve's upcoming film Story of Your Life.
Huh.
Which is also the original name of that...
Right.
Of what Arrival is based on.
Right.
Yeah. That's pretty much it
for
trivia, but I would like to take a step back for a moment to our favourite segment.
Okay.
Cishet male solve sexism.
Okay.
Now, I did threaten I would return to this. So, we mentioned the love scene.
Yeah.
Alright. Charlize Theron has gone on record as saying that she's comfortable and behind everything that occurs in the film.
Yeah.
In an article on the Entertainment Magazine website, Charlize Theron breaks down her steamy love affair in Atomic Blonde. She makes the point that, this point has been made many times, that James Bond is allowed to have endless trysts.
Sure.
And no one ever judges him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas a woman in the same thing, people are always asking, but
that's not the problem.
No.
The problem is the camera.
I agree. I agree. But she says, about the love scene, it's unexpected, it's refreshing, everyone says you can't do that, which is such bullshit. Why is it that James Bond can sleep with every girl in every movie and nobody says, wow, he's not in love with them, which presumably is what people are saying about female characters.
And yet, open a new tab, she has kind of feelings for this Delphine character, which are not in the comic. She doesn't feel for Pierre.
No, you're right. So this is interesting. She says, "Am I the only person who, long, long ago before I had children, had a one-night stand with somebody from the club? Nobody has ever done that before?" Question mark. David Leitch then went on to say that the scenes are not for shock value, but rather to illustrate the sacrifices that Lorraine has made for her profession. So this is the... It was more about, if you are a spy, you will do whatever it takes to get information. However, Johnstad, the screenwriter, who apparently came up with the idea for the character's bisexuality, because apparently he and Charlize Theron were sitting about and saying, how can this be different from other spy movies? And the man said, what if we make her bisexual? He is on the record as saying that she does care for Delphine.
Yeah.
And it's an example of kind of like how, I don't necessarily agree with him, but he says that, you know, when you work in a profession like Lorraine's, you have to snatch these moments of intimacy when you can, because it's all you get. So different from Bond's, like discarding his...
Yeah.
It's a little more empathetic in the sense that Lorraine actually cares for Delphine. She knows it can only be short term, but she cares for her in that moment, because these are the only moments of intimacy that are allowed to people that work in this profession. Okay, fine, but you know, this film's written by a man, directed by a man, and this scene, like everything else in the film, is shot for aesthetics and not for realism.
Yeah,
it's very gratuitous. It's very male gaze.
It's too bad, because that first scene where she's in the ice bath, the first time where she's all beat up.
Yeah, it's not sexy.
She's such a courageous actress.
Yeah,
and you can feel her vulnerability.
Very much so.
And
you know what ruins it? You know, in that scene, we're under the impression that she's having that ice bath to treat her bruises.
Yeah,
she's so bruised she gets in an ice bath. But then when she's in Berlin, when she's not bruised, she has an ice bath.
Yeah. Why?
What?
Was she in some fight at that stage? No, it's a car. She fought those guys in the car.
Yeah, but she has no bruises or contusions at this point.
Yes, yeah.
She just likes ice baths.
Yeah.
And then I just threw up my hands.
Yeah.
This is just something. It's like the drinking and the smoking. This is something cool secret agents do.
Yeah.
They have ice baths because of the pain.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all too real. Gotta have an ice bath.
Yeah. In
order to bring myself back. It just spoiled it for me. The bisexuality. The male screenwriter came up with it. Okay. Bisexuality, I like in this film that... So we're moving away from sexism and to something else. But I like in this film that Lorraine is heroic and bisexual. Bisexuals are seldomly heroic. They're usually coded as the villains. Because bisexuality... I think it's still seen as a perversion, I think. I think as we as a society become more comfortable or accepting of homosexuality, we've naturally accepted it as human sexuality as a binary.
Yeah.
Human beings are very comfortable with binaries. Obviously, we're bilateral. It infects our thinking.
Yeah.
We've accepted that we have this spectrum of human sexuality which ranges from same-sex attraction to opposite-sex attraction. Characters that are attracted to both the same sex and opposite sexes are often coded as villainous or perverse, hedonistic, which is not usually a heroic trait to be hedonistic.
You can ring the bell for the Baron Harkonnen again.
I was going to bring up the Baron Harkonnen. So, leaving aside the fact that Frank Herbert was homophobic, in the 60s, a villainous character could be homosexual to indicate their louche, dissolute, hedonistic character, which are evil characteristics. That, I think, has been replaced in the present by making characters bisexual. Recent Star Trek Discovery, the Empress from the Mirror Universe is bisexual, played by Michelle Yeoh.
Yes,
Great
also
actor.
Bisexual in Everything Everywhere All at Once in certain universes.
I'd forgotten about that. But she's clearly a good character in that one. So,
she's a villain in Discovery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or an anti-hero or something like that. But it's part of her villainous nature that she's not a good character.
Right.
So it's good to see... Well, it's like in the recent Queen biopic about the band Queen, about Freddie Mercury. Freddie Mercury famously had relationships with men and women, is usually remembered as being bisexual. But in that movie, he is presented as being homosexual, gay.
You're right.
And watching it, I thought that's really unusual that they made his bisexuality vanish like that. And it occurred to me it's because bisexuality is associated with disillusion and perversion, and he instead should be a healthy homosexual on this normal spectrum of human sexuality.
Interesting.
So, long story short, it's good to see a heroic character as being presented as uncomplicatedly bisexual, hopefully.
I want to open one tab on this, which is Skyfall. Because there's a scene where Javier Bardem
I was thinking that
touches
too.
James Bond's face and says something like, "Why don't you try something new?" And James Bond says, "How do you know I haven't?"
Yeah.
There's something
And he strikes his inner thighs as well.
That's right, yeah, something like that.
Too.
Yeah.
Bit more of that.
Yeah. Okay, I guess it's votes time.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to say about the comic. It's a nay for me. I wouldn't read it again, but I do think if you're into this kind of low-key spy stuff, you might enjoy this comic, is what I would say about it.
Okay. For me, it's also nay. It's a more... You've opened a chink in my thinking about the comic with some of the counter-arguments you raised to my complaints. However, I still think it's quite dull. Lacking the... I don't like the art. I don't like the visual style. I don't like the way it's lacking in energy. I don't like the indistinguishability of the characters.
It's problematic.
I find that incredibly frustrating.
Sure. Yeah.
And I still think... I don't think I'm stupid. And if I can't figure out what's going on in your comic, I don't think it's my fault.
But haven't you... You know what, I sometimes listen to James Bond podcasts, and they try to untangle the plots, and they just can't do it.
I think...
It's like, why is this guy here? What's this guy doing over there? What information did this guy have?
This brings me to the film, which for me is yay.
Yeah.
The film is yay for me because
Yeah, it's a yay for me too.
This is an action film. Look, I want my films to make sense, and I hate plot holes.
Yeah.
But if there's going to be plot holes, it better be in a film where it doesn't matter.
Yes, this film is overpowered by style.
Yeah.
Not overpowered in a way that I would say nay. It is style. It is just style. The plot falls apart anytime you start picking at it.
But
Or even characterizations fall apart, like we said about Delphine, about Percival. How can they be that way and be secret agents?
They're caricatures.
Yeah, exactly.
They're flamboyant, over-the-top caricatures.
Yeah.
They're not real people. They're these John Wick style super assassins.
But I will say,
archetypes,
much like the comic, I've now seen this movie twice. I'm not keen to watch it a third time. If it's on TV while I'm flipping channels, I might stop and watch a scene or two, but I don't need to sit through it again.
Sure.
I'm kind of exhausted by it.
I love the action sequences. I feel like the edges kind of like filed off the plot.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Because it made it run a bit more smoother. I don't like the double twist, revealing that she's the eye for the reasons that we just discussed. I think that's a cop-out, spoils it, if anything. And there are some, like we said about caricatures, Lorraine is too... Sometimes she's just a bit over the top, just how disrespectful she is towards authority.
Yeah.
You're part of an organisation. You're not, you're supposed to work within. She's so disrespectful to her bosses.
Yeah.
In those interrogation scenes, I get she's kind of playing a part for her real boss.
Yeah.
But it could be a bit much at times watching. I just think why would they put up with her speaking like this?
Yeah, this is one of many things that doesn't add up.
All right, adaptation, come up with you.
Okay, I think this is absolutely one of the worst adaptations we've had in terms of the theme, the mood, the style of the source material. If you want to improve it, you would have ended up with a movie like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. You would not have ended up with John Wick. This is a crazy adaptation. If you had read this comic and say, boy, I can't wait to go see this movie, I know they're going to have to change some bits of the plot, but it's going to feel like the book I read, you would be disappointed. So it's a huge nay for me.
I'm so glad you said that because I'm the exact opposite.
Okay.
I think this is a good adaptation. A great adaptation even. The story is still the same. It's different in some key elements, especially with the list being real in the film.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good change because the list being fake right at the end of the book, it just raises so many questions and causes so many issues. To me, it feels like, look, this story makes way more sense if we just make the list real and we have people wanting the list.
Yeah.
The fact that I don't like the comic, everything I hate about the comic is improved in the film. Simpler plot. It still doesn't make sense, but it's simpler. Action, where the plot was humdrum. Interesting characters, or at least larger-than-life characters, where the characters in the comic are dull and I can't get to grips with them in any way, shape, or form, and I don't care about them. Colour, where the comic was drab. To repeat myself, action, where the comic was static and dull. If you loved the comic, I agree, you would be disappointed. But I didn't love the comic.
Not even if you didn't love it. Even if you... It's not a question of whether you like the comic or not. It's a question of what is the comic? What is the thematic, tonal intent of the comic?
No, I think they've taken a story and spun it out into a great action movie.
I agree that it's a great action movie, but I think it's a terrible adaptation.
No, I don't agree. I think it flipped everything on its head.
That's what makes it a bad adaptation.
No, I think it's a good...
To flip everything, to remove everything and replace it with something else, except for some skeletal plot points, is not... That's not adaptation, that's like a replacement.
I hear what you're saying, but I feel like the changes, with the exception of the CIA reveal, I feel like all the changes were good. I feel like all the changes...
Yeah, no, the changes are good. But that does not make good adaptation.
I think...
That means the replacements are good. That doesn't mean the adaptation is good.
It just depends on which point are we talking about replacement or are we talking about transformation? I feel like... Well, I mean, should this film have had a different plot and had nothing to do with the Coldest City? Would it should have just been a James Bond kind of story with Charlize Theron being a badass?
Well, then you would have had Mission Impossible 1 or Skyfall where they're all searching for this knock list, right? It would have been the same thing.
I don't know,
except for the style of the action.
What you called hand-holding, I just think, is more efficient storytelling that doesn't get in the way of the plot moving forwards at a cracking pace. All that stuff with the acronyms and the gratuitous German, it was just pissing me off. I get that's... And again, like with a comic, you can have that, right?
Yes.
Because you have the time to put down the book and go to the computer.
Yes, but that's not... I don't have an issue with them making the German news podcasts into English news podcasts. I mean, it does make sense, but it's not... For me, that's like, okay, that's an adaptation, that's fine.
And, you know, Berlin...
But to turn a thing which is about how spies stare at each other and do surveillance for days on end, and that's what it means to be a spy, into this thing where you're just beating each other up.
I think... all right, I'm so glad we disagree. We'll say one more thing. The comic is called The Coldest City, and it's about Berlin. Yeah. Yet I feel like it could have been said anywhere. I don't get a feel for Berlin reading that book.
No, that's true.
Whereas in the film, maybe this isn't a real Berlin, but the place is much more important. We see the Brandenburg Gate, we see the wall.
Yeah.
David Hasselhoff even shows up. He's a couple of months early. He wouldn't be there until the end of December for New Year's Eve, the famous New Year's Eve concert. Yeah. David Hasselhoff shows up. Punks were a big part of the Berlin subculture in the late 80s. Even in East Berlin. Oh my god, Kumar, we see Trabants. East German police cars, they really were Trabants. Somehow they found like a bunch of Trabants and they're driving around in them.
Yeah, and yet the movie is not called the Berlin Blonde.
No, it's not. But if the music, we haven't talked much about the music.
Yeah.
The music gives it a real sense of place some of the time. Or rather, a sense of locus in terms of time.
Yeah.
Because these were big hits in the 80s.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like... Yes, and I don't have a problem with that either.
Okay.
Because it adds a fantastical... When the music is diegetic, it's always the authentic music from the time period. And then sometimes we get these remixed versions, which I'm fine with because it's creating a sensibility of the time rather than the strict, music of the period.
Yeah.
I think the music's great, gives it a real sense of place. I think that for a comic that's ostensibly about a town, the town is missing. And yet even if it's a fantasy version in the film, it's there and it's real. So it's a yay for me. I think this is one of the better adaptations that we've had. Okay. I liked it.
Okay, so please...
make up your own mind, listeners. Sorry, go on.
Like, rate, review, subscribe. Please join us on Facebook, Instagram. You can comment or DM us on any of those platforms. You can send us an email at the email address in the show notes. I've also set up a Blue Sky account,
Fantastic.
which I can't remember the name of, but I'll put in the show notes.
We've fled Twitter/X.
Yeah, it's
along with all
there. If you
sensible
really
people.
need to DM me there, you can, but I'm on Blue Sky as well. I'll put that in the show notes. And please join our Patreon at patreon.com/comicbookamovieoblivion. All one word, no hyphens or underscores. Next week, we will do Art School Confidential. I think it's from 2006.
Great.
Directed by Terry Zwigoff, again, from a very short...
a very short
Dan
comic story
Clowes,
by
which is,
Dan
I think it's
Clowes.
not even a story, it's 6 pages about stupid people in art school, pretty much. And actually, I think a lot of that ground was covered in Ghost World, so it'll be... I have seen this once a long time ago, I don't really remember it. Anything else?
Unlike Ghost World, I very much enjoyed Art School Confidential.
Okay,
the comic, that is.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll enjoy the film too.
Okay.